Are you ready? Okay, here we go. Trophy Club Municipal Utility District Number 1. Regular meeting is now in session. The time is 6 p.m. We have a quorum, and
Jim Thomas is not here yet.
Director Thomas is
It's here, but he's
Here, he's
not here yet, but we will continue as always. First item on the agenda, citizens' comments. Lori, do we have any citizen comments?
no, sir.
Thank you. The next item, reports and updates. Fire Department report, and Chief Thomas is not here,
why don't we just defer that till later?
so we will defer that until he gets here. Next item, consent agenda. All matters listed as consent agenda. And consider and take appropriate, hold it, back up. Sorry, Chief, back up to Fire Department report for 2016. Are you ready?
Sorry, guys.
I was gonna bypass you and come back, but if you're ready, we'll start back.
I am
Start
ready.
with you.
I do have a report that Mr. Carr asked to have tonight, so if you would.
Oh, appreciate you getting that, Janie.
This is another one, extra. An extra. Let's see if we-
Well, gentlemen, you have my report, my monthly report in front of you. Not a lot of activity in January, just a lot of department of activity. We had 47 fire calls, 36 EMS calls with a total of 83, 4 mutual aids, 2 fire, 2 EMS, and 2 automatic aid calls. Both were canceled en route. And then this report that Mr. Carr asked was, it shows our service activity for the month of January, so let you digest that a little bit, look at it or whatever. It just kind of gives a breakdown
Yeah,
of what the service
just-
calls
Yeah,
consist
just
of.
the reason I asked for it is because we did 18 last month and 34, and I just wanted to get an idea where the 34 were. That's why I asked for
Yeah,
it.
we're getting pretty heavy into the inspection process as far as the 2 hotels goes and Meet You Anywhere and stuff like that, so that's a lot of the activity.
This report,
No, ma'am, is this
It's the-
report.
I need to
The
get
colored one that was just handed out.
The highlighted ones are the service calls.
Well, I made 1, 2, 3.
No, it just didn't make it down
Made
there.
8 of them. Sorry.
pass that down to
We got a lot of unlocks too, vehicle unlocks.
Uh-huh.
We have a Slim Jim, or do we have the pump?
We have a couple
Ladder.
of different kinds. We have a kit. We have what we call a Big Easy. It's a big old long rod with a turn on the end of it where
Right.
you stick it in the window and you reach down
Yeah,
and
but do you have the bladder that you pump up?
we do have the
separate?
bladder on one of our kits, yeah.
Yeah. And then you stick the wire down to
Mhm.
get the lock or hit the door. Lock, yeah.
But other than that on the activity reports, any questions on that?
Danny, just one, forgive me, the charts are kind of turned sideways. I notice year-to-date calls with Roanoke are 21, 17 EMS 4 fire. That's us going there. How about them coming here?
You talking about the mutual aid?
Yeah.
Just,
Or activate, really.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's
could-
just in his report. It's 2016 year-to-date, mutual aid given.
They've given 6 to us. We've given, they've come to us 6 times and Westlake's come to us 4 times. It's on page 3.
On which one?
On page 3. The
Page 3
pie
of
chart.
what?
Percentage of aid received by department.
Well, I'm sorry, Danny, I'm looking at your report on the online deal, and it's page 6 of 177, which shows your data.
I don't have that, I don't have the computer up. I'm looking at my,
And I apologize, a couple of these things are sideways, so I
We-
can't turn my neck
turn
to
these-
see.
What?
I couldn't manipulate it. He used to send it in Excel, and now I get it in a PDF, and I couldn't manipulate the file.
Yeah, I mean, you can turn it and then save it again.
I did.
Yeah.
Separate.
Yeah, I'm looking at, yeah.
Hey, you know where I'm coming from, Danny.
Yes, it's-
I've said this many times. Scooter Garris was a good friend of mine, and I just want to know what he's doing to step up to his plate for his own runs instead of relying upon us to provide him fire support.
Well, yeah, that's
Too
true.
much fire
Th-
support,
That's
I'm
true. But we were in training today. We had both Ronald come to us twice today, and Westlake come to us and transport one, so we're playing that resource management game.
Okay.
So,
I think the majority of them are EMS anyway, aren't they?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I mean,
Yeah,
if there's,
it's
Like I
like-
said, the two fire calls were canceled en route. That was our automatic aids with the structure fire calls, so.
It was 17 and 4, 17 EMS and 4 fire.
okay, since you brought up the automatic aid, tell me, that's only for fire, correct?
That's only for a structure fire.
Okay, because there's confusion. Some people were thinking it was EMS
No.
and fire. It's only for fire, right?
Only for fire, only for a structure fire call.
Okay, say there's a call out for automatic aid. How many people do we roll out?
We rolled out Roanoke and in Westlake is on our mutual aid card,
Right. So we get toned out for mutual aid
Mm-hmm.
or automatic aid.
automatic aid.
Okay, how many people does a quint or pumper truck go out?
You talking about come to us or we going to them?
Going to them.
Going to them, we'll send 3 on the engine and leave 2 in the station if we have 5. If not, we send 2 and 2. 2 on the engine, that's it.
Okay, because
We keep a medic in
I read,
town.
I read somewhere, this is back when we're talking about automatic aid, that at no time should you send more than 50% of your crew out. And so okay, say there's a fire in Trophy Club. Who backs us up if we're out of the station?
Then we either call in one of our mutual aiding cities that's not on our first alarm box, which would be Grapevine, Southlake, or Colleyville, or Flower Mound, and they'll fill in for us. We've had Grapevine sit in our station a couple of times.
Okay, but the time from the call out to the time they arrive, there's not enough equipment there to service Trophy Club.
It depends and where we're at as far as what we have available in Roanoke or in on the Westlake side of the equation. If they don't have if they have their engine over here with 2 people and they have the medic in the station or whatever, vice versa. So,
Well, the EMS on mutual aid doesn't go out, so it doesn't really matter. I'm looking
but it still
at,
backs up another call. Anytime we
yeah,
get another call,
I'm just looking at, okay, now we're looking at the response time from Flower Mound, whoever else, South Lake, because obviously Roanoke, Westlake are on the same automatic mutual call that we are, right? Okay,
it could be time variance there.
okay, thanks. And then, are we done with these response charts? Because I had another question on the volunteer report, I guess. On this, Mr. Totter, I think it is.
Uh-huh.
Let me rotate my page back the other way here real quick. Okay, it's on page
Right,
Not-
he had 12 hours for the month.
12 hours, but he was paid for 24.
I don't know what the paid, Gary, do you know what the paid, they're not paid. I mean, it's the way the numbers rolls across on that report or
Because
whatever.
all the other ones were matched up, .23, .17.
Yeah, and that's the
That one.
calculation on firehouse software. They don't, the volunteers don't get paid. They get service hours, but they don't get paid.
Okay. And then he didn't get any points where a couple other ones got like 1 point or something. What's the points?
Yeah.
The report can be put in 3 different ways. There's 3 different categories in there.
Can you come to the mic just so it's on tape? Thanks.
That report can be put in 3 different ways. There's a paid category, an hours worked, and then a service credit.
Okay.
And depending on whoever put that in, if it was one of the other captains or one of the engineers, they could have put the hours in wrong on his, or if they went ahead and just clicked all 3 categories across or whatever.
Okay.
So there's just 3 categories there to fill in.
Okay, thanks, Gary. No.
I do. This is just a follow-up. Last month, when we formed a little committee to look at the recommendations based on the fire study, we did meet on February 5th and went through quite a few things, but we're still there. I made copies of the short-term key recommendations and the status. This is a draft because both Lou Pair and Danny, we're going to meet again, and then we'll just keep updating this as it goes along. I would like any of my fellow board members to look at this, and if you have any input in any particular area, please feel free to let me know, and so we can follow up. Several have to do with the deficiencies noted by the fire study in the ILA that we still have to take a look at. Plus, there's several regarding SOPs, also disaster recovery planning, which has been lacking. We also talked about, once the SOPs are adopted, using Lexpool. I'm not sure if I spelled that right, so, but basically to update us on national standards or any changes in the regulations as they come through. It'll make it easier to maintain the SOPs in the future, make sure they're up to date. And also, so there's several things on there. Now, one of the other good things, and there's a second handout that Chief Thomas was able to get. As you know, the fire study was talking about the time from, on our fire calls, from the time we leave the station to the time our equipment arrives on scene. And one of the things we were able to break down, there's a thing called Denton County Office, TR, FD. And in the second column, that's the time from basically the station getting the call to the time the equipment rolls. There's I would call it a tough guy type of computer inside the cab of the fire equipment. So when the fire equipment starts rolling, there's a button that the firemen press, and that lets basically the dispatcher know that the equipment is en route. And then, of course, there's the time that the equipment arrives on scene, wherever it is, whether it's in Trophy Club or in the fire district, or it might even be in Roanoke or Westlake. And but one of the things that we talked about at our meeting is trying to get the time in station down, and that's one of the things that we'll be addressing. One of the other things was, and again, I'm looking for maybe some of my fellow directors' input. We looked at the job description of the fire chief, and it hasn't been updated in about 16 years. And it was one of the recommendations in the fire study. So if you guys, I made copies so you people, my fellow directors, can look at it and maybe provide me some additional input. And also, I welcome any input you may have on any of the items listed on the draft report as it was given to you today. I don't know if Chief Thomas, Danny, do you want to, anything after that? We do have another meeting, March 1st, a Tuesday. Okay. You messed me up with the date. All
I was
right.
looking at my pencil calendar, 'cause I was looking at February, not March. It should be, Neil, for the record, it should be March 3rd or Wednesday, which is a C shift, which Gary's on. He's my training coordinator, so we're trying to work with his shift, so if there's an issue, we need to work with the date.
Yeah,
We'll get back together.
I got a conflict on that Wednesday, but Tuesday and Thursday I can do it. But listen, we'll work that out after the meeting. But we're continuing to meet at least once a month to move ahead on these recommendations and start planning out what kind of actions should be taken, whether it's a new SOP, a missing SOP. Again, one of my concerns is the lack of disaster planning, and that, according to Lou, the last time we had a full tilt disaster plan was 1999, and I'd rather be safe than sorry. So, but we're going to address all that, but again, any input from my fellow directors is welcome as we move forward.
I received a call from Lou, and he said that all the SOGs or SOPs, whatever you want to call them, they're done and submitted, or we approved them last
Jennifer
meeting.
has them in, legal's looking at them
They've
right now.
been
It's in
sent to
legal.
Pam for a legal review.
Review.
and
We have, I don't think we
Reading?
formally reviewed them since, or adopted them yet.
Okay.
I think we're doing that in March.
Any further questions for the chief? If not, we'll move on to the consent agenda.
Thanks for that last minute report. Chief.
All matters listed as consent agenda are considered to be routine by the Board of Directors and will be enacted by one motion. There will not be a separate discussion of these items. If a discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. Item 2, consider and take appropriate action to approve the consent agenda. A, January 2016 check register. B, January 19, 2016 regular meeting minutes. Item C, resolution number 2016-02-16A, approving submittal of Water Smart application to the Association of Water Board Directors. Item D, declare surplus property and authorize the disposal by the general manager.
Mr. President, I'd like to make the motion that on the consent agenda, we approve A, C, and D.
Okay.
I'll
We
s-
have a-
I'll
we have a
second.
We have a motion and a second. There's no further discussion. We'll call for the vote. All those in favor? It is unanimous.
Mr. President, on item B, on the January 19th, 2016 regular meeting minutes, we had a long, detailed discussion regarding the fire study and the recommendations. Part of that discussion had to deal with the current ILA that's in effect until September 30th, 2016. I think to be more meaningful, it would be, I think we should have additional detail in those minutes, because that was early on in the meeting, but it was also reflected in actions that we took later in the meeting. And I would like to see these minutes brought back to us next month with additional information.
Okay.
Okay, well, if you're gonna open the door on that, I'd like to, the items listed on the SOGs, SOPs, if you could just listen to the tape, I think it wasn't an appendix, it was a log where they could sign off or show what revisions were done. You know, if you could just correct that too. You know, as far as the items on the SOGs that the board addressed. And then you mentioned the fire ILA already that we discussed prior, and then I actually made a statement before making a motion, so if you could add that to the.
I mean, honestly, Lou was at the meeting and he made some very important points. And, I mean, I'd like to see all those, a summary of all those comments, whether it's from the director or from Lou, who we consider, a very good source. And that, because it gives a fuller picture of what the discussion was all about.
There's one more thing is, on one of the motions, I can't remember which one it was, but it had two Ds on there. On, it must've been 16, on page 27. It has regarding agenda item 6D space D period. So if you could drop one of the Ds too. Just, I mean, if he wasn't gonna say anything, I wasn't gonna bring it up, but since you're gonna make the corrections.
Okay, any further discussion?
I'd like to get clarification from Neil. What is it you want done in regard to the fire department?
Regarding the early discussion with the chief or regarding the minutes?
Well, if it's minutes, if you want to hold the minutes, I
Yes.
assume it's something that's going to go in the minutes.
I think when you listen to the tape, there's much more detail regarding our discussions that night regarding, again, the fire study, the corrections or deficiencies noted in the fire study that we're trying to correct,
I think,
but also particularly regarding the ILA. We had a longer discussion on that, and I don't think the minutes properly reflect that discussion.
I think, but correct me if I'm wrong, what you're talking about is when Lou was talking about the study in, I remember number 3 came up and he says until the ILA gets identified or more precise about the fire chief, who they report to, then you can't address the other items on the study. That's what I remember. Is that correct?
That's
Are
true.
you wanting Laurie to go back to the tape and pick up the pertinent items that were brought up by Lou O'Pippery?
Yes, and some of the discussions with the directors, too. I mean, it was an all-inclusive discussion, and I think even though we don't normally get into this level of detail in the minutes, because it is it's important to the district and important to our citizens, I think it's would be appropriate that we have a expanded text in the minutes regarding this. And because this is our official record, And if you're going to see what we did, you're going to look at the minutes more than you're going to view a videotape. So, just my opinion.
Neil, I was looking through this. Which item in the minutes you referring to, 6 or another one?
When we were talking about the fire study, I have to go back and take a
I
look.
was just trying to follow
Number
what you are.
6.
I think it all had to do in 6.
And then when I made the motion, I actually had a statement before the motion and then. But,
So, I mean, because later on, we addressed the ILA after executive session, but it was mostly based on these discussions
Yeah.
that we made our decisions.
and it,
And I think to properly reflect what was going on and what we were considering, what we were looking at, and what we heard about the current deficiencies in the current ILA as it's written, this is the appropriate place to expand it so anybody can look at that and then understand why we made our decision.
Okay, Adams?
another error, must be an error on 11 because I made a motion and all of them voted against me, so that has to be wrong. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay. Item A, D, C, and D have been approved. Item B will be deferred until the next meeting. We will now move into our regular session. Item 3, consider and take appropriate action to award bid for replacement of fences at lift station number 6 and lift station number 7. Discussion, Jennifer?
Sure. This was a budgeted item for this year. So we did a bid package, and it is to replace the bids at lift station number 6 and 7.
That you mean, not the bid.
I'm sorry?
You said bid, replace the fence.
Yes, to replace the fence. We took bids to replace the fence, so it's been a long few days, I apologize. So lift station number 6, is that Skyline? Yeah, it's on Skyline. And then lift station number 7 is over just past the guard shack in the Trophy Club Park, kind of down a little dirt road. Both of them are in pretty bad shape. On lift station number 6, I received a call when Carl was out from a resident who really wanted what she described as rock fence. And I told her that, that we didn't budget enough for that. I didn't believe, but that I would be happy we could include it as an alternate, and if we're within the budget, we could certainly do that. So you'll see for lift station number 6, we did 2 alternates, a cedar fence, and then also a composite fence, which is a rock-like fence. And as it turned out, of course, the cedar fence for both were the lowest cost. These are, instead of being 6 foot with the barbed wire strands on top, we did bid it out for 8 foot fencing. And so the total lowest bid is $15,592.24, and that was from Diamond Fence, and that would be the staff's recommendation is to accept their bid for alternate 1 on lift station 6, and then the bid for lift station 7.
Which is what type of fence?
Both would be cedar fencing.
Okay.
with an option of that prefab with the rock.
No, we wouldn't do the rock. That's alternate.
Yeah. I listened to the council tape and I heard Roanoke might have excess prefab fence. Just don't know.
I could ask them if they'll give it to us for free, I guess.
Doesn't hurt, or at a discounted rate. I make a motion that we award the bid for lift station number 6, alternate number 1 for cedar fencing, and for lift station number 7 to Diamond Fence for the amount not to exceed $15,592.24.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. There's no further discussion. All of those in favor? It is unanimous. Item 4, consider and take appropriate action regarding submittal of request for World Trade Center steel for display as a district fire station.
Okay, I gave you all a handout of our artist's rendition of what we thought this could look like. Basically, all we're requesting approval for tonight is to actually submit a letter and request a piece of steel. And we would then kind of, just as something to submit to give them an idea of what we're looking at, what we might be looking at to design so that we can give them an estimated size of steel. Then we would kind of come up with the final dimensions of the podium that would hold it and everything once we actually got approved and knew what size of steel we would get. But we're going to ask for something between about 18 inches to 3 feet.
Was this a town mud shared thing, or just a mud deal, or?
It's a mud deal right now, as far as I know.
Because I
We'd
know
have to ask the town.
Councilmember Perro brought it up, and it was passed on to us by the council, or suggested.
Well, I
This is-
still see any problem in submitting the application and then see where it goes.
I'd like to make a motion then that we authorize the general manager to pursue the documentation necessary to find out if we can receive a piece of steel, and if we can receive a piece of steel, then further planning in terms of exactly the details of how it will be installed.
I'll second
Okay.
what you said, that we're talking about steel from the World Trade Center.
Yes, sir.
Question, Jim?
Yes.
Jennifer, it looks really nice. What's the estimated cost?
I think that we could probably do all of it for less than $5,000. And I don't see that we would get the application in and actually get the steel and everything. Well, I guess you would have to count our travel time to go to New York, because we may have to go pick it up. And I volunteered to do that. But no, I think we could probably do it for, $5,000 max. And, but we would need to budget for that next fiscal year. But I think by the time the process goes through, I don't really know what length of time we're talking about, but I would imagine it would probably be, late this summer before we ever got an answer, yes or no, if we're going to get it. And then we could just store it until we could budget for the money to actually build the
Was this
memorial.
I guess your rendition shows it outside. Is that where you want to put it, or in the lobby, as you walk in the main lobby? Because steel's gonna rust if it's outside unless it's encased.
Well, we've noticed that, a lot of them that we looked at, they all have them outside. A whole lot online, you can see them outside. But yes, my idea was for it to go outside, but you can certainly move it inside.
As long as it's sealed, it's
It's gonna be rusty when you get it.
Yeah, it'll be a rusted piece of steel anyway, so,
If it does come to fruition, in order to save you the cost, I'm usually up in New England sometime during the year.
that's right.
I can always detour, even though New York City is a great place to drive through, and pick it up if that's, I'm sure they don't keep it downtown Manhattan anymore, because I've been to the museum down there and everything,
There are
but
currently a whole lot of requests for this steel.
Yes.
And probably they have plenty of it, but maybe not. And from what I understand, the consideration, as Jennifer mentioned, is probably going to take a while. So I think we're probably looking at next year's budget, but we'll see how it goes and move as fast as we can on it. Any further discussion?
Like the idea.
Did we vote on that?
you made
Not
the
yet.
motion.
Okay, motion's
Neil-
made. Did I
Neil
have a second?
seconded.
yes.
We have a motion and a second. All of those in favor? It is unanimous. Item 5, consider and take appropriate action regarding possible funding sources for future water system upgrades based on priorities outlined in the water system study presented by CP&Y Wallace Group at the workshop held on February 5th, 2016. Discussion.
I think I'll make a motion before then you can discuss it. I would like to make a motion that the ammonia feed system, estimated at $176,000, be funded out of cash reserves and started as soon as possible.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Just a question. Jennifer, what does that do to the impact on cash reserves? What impact does that have on our current cash reserves?
We will still have about a little over 400,000 in reserves
After we do this?
after the ammonia feed, yes.
And if I could, I'd like to amend it that the staff also look into creative ways to finance other versions, I guess 2, 3, 4. I think that's as far as we went down in 5, increased ground storage. And come back.
Now, if you go all the way down to 5, including 5, and I realize the audience doesn't have a copy of the fire study, but basically I'll read the first 5 so they can be aware of what they
Water
are.
study,
Water study, what did I call it?
fire.
Water study.
Same thing, you put fires out with water. So.
Yeah. Okay, the item 1 is the ammonia feed system at 176,000. Item 2 is a line from the pump station to the east elevated tank, estimated at 2.18 million. Item 3 is upgrade the water supply from Fort Worth to the Westlake pump station, estimated at 4.4 million. And part of that item 4 is a continuation of this is a 24-inch pipe from the Westlake pump station to the vault outside the front door here, 12 to 13 million. And item 4 is improve the high service pumps. And I think that was estimated at $240K. And there's how many pumps out there now? 3?
3.
3, and were we planning to go 4 or?
Well, there's there's a total of 5 right now. There's 5 pumps, but 3 need to be upgraded.
Okay, so that's item
4.
4, and item 5 is to build the third groundwater tank once the city moves to their new location. It'd be basically built on top of where the current day police station is. So if you add all that up, it's about 23 million. So we talked a little bit today about if you put that third 3 million gallon tank, ground storage tank, you may be able to handle the shortage of water as provided in the water study for a while longer, because that is the most expensive item we have on down through the first 5 items is 12 to 13 million. And we also want to discuss with Fort Worth whether we are obligated to pay that entire amount.
So,
Again, I don't think you had a second, but did you second?
yeah, no, I was just gonna summarize.
Well, I like to second and then have discussion, because I think I'd like to address a couple of things in there. As far
I
as
second Jim's original.
Okay.
Then I made an amendment to have the staff go back and look at ways to finance the additional items. And then Jim summarized.
There are
items.
some decisions to be made about
So
do we want all bonded debt? Do we want to do the full 23 million in the first go around, or do we want to take the 12 to 13 million out and deal with it later? But we want to put the elevated tank in there, because that will allow
You
you
mean
to.
the ground storage, right?
Yeah, I'm ground
Yeah,
storage,
but
right?
the ground storage is probably, a year to,
Yeah.
18 months off. So again.
And also, we need to talk about, do we want to try to do this with all bonded debt, or do we want some revenue debt? And what, if we decide we want a mixture of bonded and revenue, what would that mixture be? How much it would be in one category versus the other?
Accept my amendment.
Yes, I accept it.
Okay, Jim, again, for discussion. Jim, I agree with you on getting the new system in as soon as possible, and funding it out. But I'd also, since interest rates are still relatively low, I would rather also immediately we go ahead with it, but at the same time, finance it with a 3-year note with the low interest rates that we have right now. It's just better to spread that cost, the real cost.
How much of the 23 million?
No, I'm talking about the additional, I'm trying to remember,
Ammonia treatment?
the ammonia treatment, because we have different steps. The way I recall the water study is, there's certain triggers based on demand and population, and sometimes a combination of both, actually. And now, running an additional line to the east side of the town is necessary for maintaining proper pressure over there. And also, as it was discussed at the meeting, instead of 2.1 million, it'll be less because of the contribution that's being made by the developer regarding PD 30.
Right.
So it's actually gonna come down to 1.8. But I'd certainly like to move ahead right now on the ammonia system that we discussed, and everybody agreed it was the first priority. Second priority is that line. And, but we need to have a more detailed discussion of the timing. First of all, engineering, the right-of-way with TxDOT, all this stuff has to be covered. So we could say we're moving ahead with it, but the timing is, you're still looking at next year for that line. And then everything else that we've talked about is 1, 2, 3, or 4 years out. And again, what I took from the water study is, when we hit a certain population trigger or a demand trigger, it doesn't matter, it's both the same in a sense. That's when, ahead of time, we start saying we're gonna be looking at this and looking at that, including the line coming, what we call the 21-inch line that runs along Alliance Parkway and 114 and crosses over into into our district.
The
So,
new-
yes, Jim?
That's 24 inches, not 21.
21,
21
Yeah, I'm sorry.
okay.
The one that's there's 21,
And that's out by 114 is 21.
yeah, but we're proposing to
Go to 30.
expand
But
it to
24.
24.
24,
Well, I
okay.
guess everybody's right.
Okay, sorry. But again, since that line is 30-plus years old, and, and we have, anything, and again, the piping, like when Solana was being built in the 80s, they used that new I call it plastic or PCB pipe, but it has a basic life of estimated 150 years.
Yeah, much longer.
And the old piping, such like was in the old parts of Trophy Club, that doesn't have that long a life. And I think we're on the 21-inch line, we'd be faced with some type of replacement anyways in the near term. But I think we need to have, as a board, we need to have a detailed schedule about, if this population or demand level is hit, then estimated what time it has, and then that's the time, then prior to that, prior to the need being too evident, that's when we go ahead and we do our planning and financing.
Well, let me say two things. One is, we're not going to make any kind of a bond issue date for May. It's too late for May. So the earliest we're talking about on bonds is we probably need to get our ducks in a row by about July for a November bond issue, if we decide to go that route. My second question is, are you proposing to take the $176,000 for ammonia treatment and borrow that from a bank and pay it back over 3 years? Is that your suggestion?
I think it would spread the cost out, and we could reflect that in future rate orders as far, or as part of debt service. But I think the priority is to move ahead, give the direction to the general manager and staff to move ahead with that. It won't be immediate. It's going to take some time. And then, and honestly, by the time we go ahead with that, we'll be into the fiscal budgeting for next year anyways. And we could, it's almost like where we do the engineering studies, and then when the bonds issue, we pay ourselves back. I'm just proposing that we be planning to go ahead with a 3-year note starting next year, next fiscal year, and to put that money back into the surplus. That way, we spread the cost over
Well,
3 years.
why don't you amend our motion?
Well, I just want to have the discussion, so see if there was a
I
a
don't
feeling.
think Jennifer, I leaned over and asked her if she had any objection to a 3-year note. She said no, rather than paying it all in the first year out of cash reserves.
I do want to say, I think that's a good idea. We can certainly do that, and we can look into that. But I will say that when you apply for funding, we are in a rate challenge, and that could affect our ability to get a 3-year note right now. So that's a concern.
Well, again, I'd be looking for this financing to take place after October 1st. So, you know, in the meantime, whatever the cost may be in this fiscal year, we'll fund out of cash and then replenish that fund later. And if because of the rate challenge, we have to incur higher interest costs, it's just like the legal costs we have to incur because of a misplaced rate challenge. So,
So
I mean,
why don't you amend it to, if possible, do the 3-year note? If not, then just use the reserves.
okay, I just want to make sure you know, that we had a consensus. Okay, I would like to amend Jim Hayes's motion to have the staff also explore in the next fiscal year, obtaining a 3-year note to repay the investment in the ammonia system that we'll probably go ahead and purchase this year.
I have this question for Jennifer. Is there a critical need to start this ammonia fix earlier than after the end of this fiscal year?
I do think we need to get it started, yes. The summertime is when you start seeing more and more of the chlorine and the ammonia dissipate. As the heat heats up, we'll start seeing more of that. And with less coming in from Fort Worth, we don't want to get in a situation where we don't have enough ammonia. So I think it is important that we get that one going pretty quickly.
How long would it take to get the machine, Jennifer?
Well, it's going to take a building to be constructed to put it in, like our chlorine room. We're not talking a huge building of any sort, but
Over next to the 2 tanks?
yes, it'll be put out there and so it'll have to have a small little building constructed, and then the feed systems. I don't know, Kevin, what do you think the lead time might be?
On the feed system with the chemical injection pumps there? I would say
I think they're pretty much on the shelf, right? So,
it should take 4 to 6 weeks.
yeah.
Pretty much to turn around on that.
So, you're talking design, at least 30 days to 45 days for design, then bid it, that's another 30 to 45 days. So that's, say, 3 months down the road. And then it'll take, another month to get the things in. So we're talking 4 months down the road.
All right, and see, that way we can make it before the peak happens in June.
Jennifer. You just said something, I even hate to open my mouth on this one. We put a building into the sewer plant, and because we had a new building in, we had to replat that property. With this new building, will this property have to be replatted?
I don't think it would, I don't think that it would require a replat. This property is platted. The issue with the wastewater plant was that it was not platted. So I think there will be some building permit issues, yes. But it will not require a replat, it'll just require a plat. It's more like a chemical room.
Well, look,
Talking about a shed.
the only reason I said that is if we're on a fairly quick timeline, and summer's not that far away, let's make sure that we get with the town immediately once you start this work and find out exactly what they need from us in order to move this forward so that we don't run into the delays that we had with the sewer plant.
Sure.
That stuff bounced back and forth for three and 4 months.
Okay, sure.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, or do we? Do we have?
I don't know, Neil, did you start to make a
What-
motion?
I
made
asked to amend your motion
You
to,
have to accept
I
it.
don't think
you
anybody.
just have to
seconded
accept
it.
my.
No.
Well, what are you gonna say? Tell me
Motion
again.
and an
Okay,
amendment
what
to
I
that motion
was
by
suggesting
Kevin.
is that in the next fiscal year, that the district obtains a 3-year note,
possible.
if possible, to replenish our cash reserves for the capital outlay that we'll have this year for putting this ammonia system in.
I'm agreeable to that.
I'll agree.
We have a motion and a second. We have an amendment and an agreement. Any further discussion?
Yes.
Director Thomas.
Kevin, if I don't say this right, I want you to come up to the microphone and correct me, please. When we went through that study in massive detail, based on the build-out in Trophy Club, with the homes that still have got to go in at Harmony Park, with the handful still in the PID, with PD 30 specifically, huge stuff, there was nothing on that list except item number 7 that can be postponed, correct? It can be, we can plan it, but every one of those first 6 items are mandatory. The volumes strictly are going to require it. The residential homes are going to require it. The commercial businesses are going to require it.
Right. Your demand will require all those items. Maybe not tomorrow, but the day after tomorrow.
I
It's just
understand. Now,
it's
the reason
just
I want to
like
make that
Neil
statement.
said, it'd be a period, you can step it out, but they all will need to be required.
Well, the reason I said that, Jim Hayes, you said something a minute ago. It's the first time I've heard it. Kevin, don't leave the microphone. Don't leave. In the report, you had given what you felt the priority sequence were for the things that needed to be done.
Yes.
But I heard Jim Hayes say something a second ago, that if we had the 3rd water storage tank, that might give us a little leeway before we have to bring in this new 21 or 24-inch line from Fort Worth, because we
No,
would
it's
have more.
from Westlake. The 12 to 13 million runs from Westlake Pump Station.
It's from their vault. It's from really their water containment all the way to us. But
That's
my
right.
point, Jim, that's the $13 million expense on this whole train of stuff. So as we start, we've asked Jennifer to start looking at ways to finance this. So one of the other things I think we've got to think about is the town is on a path to build a new facility for the police station. Whenever they choose to break ground, it's somewhere. They've been talking about it being an 18-month cycle. I assume we're somewhat into that 18 months because they've already done the design work. But Jim, if I understood what you said, we're really going to need to know from them. If in that Friday meeting, we discussed this, and you're looking, Jennifer, and fix me now. We're looking at a start to finish year to put that 3 million gallon tank up, of which 3 months of it is design, right? Best guess?
Yeah, it's going to take some time to design it, yes.
Okay, so here's my point. If in fact that thing becomes critical because it can help us delay that $13 million expense, then we need to know, and I don't want to do anything to the town that creates a problem for them. But we need to know from them a pretty accurate date on when they're going to exit that building, because we need to start 3 months prior to that exit with the design so that we can start construction on that tank the second they clear house.
They can't tell you 2018, March 18th at 6 p.m. they'll be out.
No, Kevin, I understand, but this thing can't drag on.
But
Look, I'm looking at trying to defer a $13 million
There's a lot of
expense.
things you can do up front, and you don't need to have a vacated lot to do. And that's what we talked about prior, is there's things that you can do building up to it. And then when the building is vacated, then you can bring the land movers in and start going. But, there's a lot of things in construction and buildings that delay it. Weather's the biggest one, but they can't tell you we'll be out by March, and then he sets things up for March, and then it turns into April.
Kevin, I want to work with them. I want them to help us, give us an idea so that we can do a better job of planning. When they break dirt over here in the front, the first thing going in is 250 apartments. The first thing.
317.
317 apartments. That's the first thing going in. That's going to require a whole bunch of connections from us, which means we may need that water tank. So this is just stuff we got to look at. I want to work with them so we can plan as best we can to get that tank in place as fast as possible, if in fact it could help us defer this $13 million on that water line. Now, Jennifer, as I understood you the other day, we may not even be able to defer that because Fort Worth, if I understand, is pushing for design commitments already.
Not the 12 million, not the one from Westlake to us, but the one up to Westlake.
Westlake. All right,
That's
that's a
the
4 million. That's a $4
4.4
million
million. that is in the plan, so.
All right, okay, thanks.
Kevin, let me ask you a question. I just made up the story about the third tank possibly satisfying our water requirements for a while longer than the 12 or 13 million pipe. Since I just made that up, is that really true? That the
Well, I
third,
think if I
the third,
remember what Gil had said was the goal, and if that's whether your goal is to have full days, maximum daily demand in reserve, okay? And to do that, when you hit your top, your peak flow, when you build out, then you will need that third, 3 million gallon tank.
well, I think last meeting, we talked about the fact that as soon as the town is able to vacate the police station into their new quarters, we would like to start on that third tank.
Well, what you can do is, like what Kevin's doing, that you can see how the town's progressing, and if it takes 18 months, I'm just, your number, say 18 months, okay? Let's say you're a year down the road, okay, and you say, okay, we're about 6 months from that. Then you could start your design at that time, so that, and work your way into it, do the design, and if this town is still on schedule, continue on. If they're not, you can say, okay, we're gonna stop our design, not gonna bid the project until we have a better feeling. If it continues online, then you can go right into bidding, so that when they ready to move out, within 30 days or something like that, you can be able to start. So there's some things we can do, stair-step it, to move along, but not wait till the last minute to do everything.
Hey, guys, that's all I was saying. As we get into this and as the town gets closer to actually their construction, it starts going, all I was saying was, let's plan this thing so that hopefully 3 months before they really are planning to leave the building, we use that as our trigger point to start our design, so that when they do leave the building, we can start construction right away. That's all I was trying to say.
Okay, we have, any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. There's no further discussion. Let's call for the vote. All those in favor? It is unanimous. Item 6, consider and take appropriate action to approve engineering proposals from CP&Y Wallace Group, including design of stabilized blocking for aero sewer line at Creek Crossing. B, design of ammonia feed system at the water plant. I believe item B has already been covered. Am I not correct, Pam?
Yes.
Well, you've actually approved us to move forward with that. I would say you probably need to go ahead and take action on the actual engineering proposal that's in the packet. And then we could back up to item A. B is the ammonia system.
Jennifer, is that included in the 176,000, or is that additional expense?
No, that's additional.
The engineering is additional, yes.
Is the amount listed in here?
Yes, 35,130, not to exceed 35,130 for the design.
It's on page 36.
Jennifer, you want to take item A and,
I was hoping y'all just go ahead and do B real quick, and then I have a presentation for A.
oh, all right, okay, fine.
Nothing for B? No
Nothing
presentation?
really. We've kind of talked that.
Dog and pony show come in?
I thought we had already approved A, or
Well,
B
B.
rather. The 176,000, we did vote and approve that one, so.
Right, but it does not include the engineering, according to Jennifer, so we need to approve this also. So do I have a motion to approve item B?
I'd make a motion to approve item B, not to exceed 35,000.
You're shaking your head,
Okay,
The 176,000 did not include the engineering. That was just the number we had got for the material and the installation.
Okay.
The equipment and then,
Kevin, you're comfortable this 35,130 is accurate?
yes.
And I so move that we approve those funds.
I'll second.
we have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, we'll call
Jim,
for the
forgive me,
vote.
in my motion, I did say not to exceed 35,130. I did say that.
Yes.
Yes,
I
okay.
have a discussion on, when you do the engineering and stuff, could you make sure that, I'm sure Jennifer will do that we get with the town and make sure they know whatever's gonna be built there is built?
Right. The first thing we plan on doing is having a meeting, maybe even Thursday, with Michael, the supplier, Gil and me, maybe, and Jennifer too, if up there, to get our plan of attack, what we need to do, because we want to look at different things, what we can do. And we put these things in before, we know we're going to have a bulk storage tank. Maybe we can be,
But have you put one in Trophy Club?
no, I have not put one
Okay,
in Trophy
well,
Club.
Just, you've
But,
been through
you
the
know,
gamut
once we get
already.
that set up, then we'll be able to talk to the town, so here's what we're gonna have to do on the outside to move forward with that.
Kevin, all we're saying is let's work with the town very closely this time so we don't have the problems like we had with the sewer plant. That's all we're saying.
Okay.
Okay, Jennifer, do you want to cover item A, design of stabilized blocking for aerial sewer line at Creek Crossing?
Sure. Did y'all vote on that?
I did not vote.
No,
So you may want to vote on the motion and,
on B, well, I call for
Jim
the
ma-
vote.
Yeah, Jim, did we get a second?
We had a second.
We have a motion and a
Thomas
second.
Nelchumi.
We'll call for the vote. All of those in favor?
Aye.
It is unanimous. I'm getting confused tonight, Jennifer. I'm not tired as you are, but I'm confused.
Oh, we keep jumping back from A to B and 6 to 5.
How about C? Did we approve C?
There's no C listed,
Okay.
Mr. Carr.
Okay, C.
Okay, now we'll go.
okay, so,
Before we get started, I just want to acknowledge Greg Wilson is in the audience, and he's one of the candidates. Is that correct? Yes.
all right, so what the item on the agenda tonight is to approve an engineering proposal. But even since we posted the agenda, there's been kind of more and more added to this. So I wanted to kind of go through what the whole issue is from start to finish so we can kind of know where we've been and where we need to go. As you all know, on January the 29th, we had a leak in an aerial crossing that's a sewer line, a 24-inch sewer line that's over behind the wastewater treatment plant. The operators noticed the lower flow about 145, and at about 2:15, they were able to find the pipe, and we called out a contractor that we've used a lot. You all are familiar with Raymar. They do a lot of our emergency repairs for us. They got out there, and they immediately were able to seal it with a putty seal to stop the leak. And then a clamp and concrete was put around it after the leak was stopped. At 3:20 on that day, I myself contacted TCEQ, and I spoke with them, and I let them know what had happened. And I was in the office reporting it while they were out there repairing it. And I told her at that time it was under repair. Pretty much by the time I got off the phone, it was all done, or the plug was done. The repair wasn't done. After the repair, the staff disinfected the area, as we do with all sanitary sewer overflows. And on the following Monday, a water quality noncompliance notification was submitted to TCEQ. That is the protocol for all unauthorized discharges for sanitary sewer overflows. When our wastewater and superintendent gave me the number of to report to TCEQ when I verbally called him and on the report, he was not sure how long this leak had been going on, so he calculated it based on a 24-hour period. That's important because as we go through this, you'll later see that it was amended. But it was based on a 24-hour period, and at the flow rate, that calculated out to be about 86,000 gallons. We also made sure that the contractor and the staff were monitoring that line periodically after the repair, because it just didn't look exactly right to me. There was on one end, and I'll show you a photo in a few moments, there was a lot of concrete that was sealed around there, and it just looked like a very heavy end on it. And I think we all felt like we needed to really make sure that this was going to hold, that the seal was going to hold, that the strapping was going to hold, and we kept monitoring the slope on that.
Sorry to interrupt you on that TCU requirement. Oh, never mind. You got it right there.
Okay.
I was going to say 319.
Yes, I've had questions from all of you, actually.
Back up one chart, Jim. just for my understanding, your guys had calculated on a 24-hour period that 86,000 gallons had bled into the creek. So what is the 7,200 gallons?
It was later amended, and I'll get to that.
It was,
Okay, so the question was, were we required to do a public or media notification? The answer is no, it is not required. The rule that covers the public media notification is 319.302. And if it is a spill with a volume of 50,000 gallons or more, but less than 100,000, you look at some other criteria. Was it within a half a mile of a public or private source of drinking water? The answer is no, it was not. Was it within a half a mile of a private drinking well? No. Did the spill occur half mile up gradient of a surface water intake of a public or private source of drinking water? No. Did the spill occur in an active groundwater recharge area? No. Did the spill occur up gradient and within half a mile of karst terrain or shallow alluvial well that is a source of drinking water? No, it was not. It was not 100,000 gallons. Therefore, a public media notification was not required, and that's why one was not done. This is what the line looks like now after the repair. And to kind of give you a perspective, the end with the big concrete ball down there, that's the end that was repaired, and that's the west bank. And as we're kind of talking through the presentation, it'll help for you to know that that's the west side bank. That side is old concrete pipe. The side over here on the east side, that is ductile iron pipe. And they're fused together. On the east bank, if you look right here, you can kind of see the corner of what is a concrete footing that holds and supports the pipe. On the west end side, there is not a footing. And you can even see just from this picture how much that bank has eroded. There's a lot of erosion back there. And at some time, there may have been a concrete, or there was a concrete footing in there, but it's gone now. And that's probably when that erosion occurred. This is what the water quality noncompliance notification looks like.
Back up a second. On the west side where the repair's been made, was that, I don't know what you call it, I don't know what the right term is, but pipe comes with kind of a cap on one end and not one on the other end.
A bell.
Is that what it's called?
Yes.
It looked to me when I was down there like the thing, as luck would have it, hit right on the bell and knocked a piece of the bell off. Is that what happened?
No, there's not. The concrete pipe, unlike ductile iron, it doesn't have the bell joints like you're talking about. It's more of a solid piece. It's just an older pipe. And we don't really know until we start digging that up later, which is what we're going to talk about in a few minutes, how far back that concrete pipe goes. So we'll have to kind of look at that. But no, it does kind of look like that concrete's around a bell, but it's actually just the clamp that's underneath there. So this is what a water quality noncompliance notification looks like. You all have seen them. Most of the time you see them when it's just a sanitary sewer overflow on the ground. A manhole has overflowed. I know we've had 2 or 3 of these over at the inverted siphon that serves the PID that goes out over on the golf course. That'll back up and we'll have a sanitary sewer overflow over there. It's the same form. One, you check that it's an unauthorized discharge or a reportable effluent violation. In this case, it's an unauthorized discharge. That's what a sanitary sewer overflow is. Oh, sorry. Okay, after the fact, we had a couple of visits, or we've had a few visits from the TCQ and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, which we'll call the Corps. On February 10th, the TCQ and the Corps came out and they inspected the site. At that time, TCEQ collected some stream samples. We had also collected some field samples the day of the discharge as well. On this day, they collected some samples upstream and downstream. We have not received those results back yet from TCEQ. They informed us that that will be all placed into a report when it's sent to us. I was actually out of town when they were there, and Carl went around with them. He explained to him what happened and how the pipe was repaired. The representatives from the Corps asked that the district develop a plan for remediation of the site. They were not happy with just the disinfection that we usually do, and as soon as they left, Carl contacted me, and we started working on implementing or developing a plan. On February 12th, I met with the representatives of the Corps out there at the site, and we kind of we walked down the banks from one side to the other side, and they requested that we do a remediation from what we called the bin to the branch dam. There was an area where there was a lot of branches going across there, and it actually had that area dammed up on one end.
Jennifer, is that the area now that has the dams on each end in the creek?
It was a little further down from that, where the branch dam was. So yes.
I mean, today, they've got a dam blocking it upstream, and they've got a dam catching it where the problem was. That area you're talking about, is that what's in between those two dams?
Yes, that's the containment area that they've asked us to clean out, and that's what we're working on. I contacted a firm called Taz Environmental. They work on environmental spills, chemical plants, sewer plants, diesel trucks that overturn on the highways. That's their specialty, is cleaning up and remediation. I called them out on that Friday. They just deployed out there. They were out there and actually started pumping water out of that area about 6:30 on Friday evening. They are still working out there, and the goal is to be finished by this Wednesday. The remediation consists of damming the area upstream and downstream, containing the area within, and then in order to do that, in order to get that construction area, to construct those dams, we did have to kind of create a path on either side on Corps property. I had emailed the Corps representative over the weekend. I did not hear back from him until actually Monday. They were off on Monday. And we went ahead, because we had kind of stopped the remediation, we went ahead and we did those paths in. I assured him that we will make sure that we put it back in just as it was before. We were very fortunate in that there was only a few little saplings that had to be removed. Wasn't any big trees. But we will have to replace that when we're all done. Now we've kind of contained this water into this area, and we're cleaning, they're like power washing the banks down, washing it all into that kind of pond area, holding area, and it's being sucked out and pushed to the head of the wastewater plant for treatment. Once all of this is completed, those areas will be groomed up by Taz once they're finished.
Jennifer, just FYI for you, I was out there late this afternoon, happened to talk to the foreman. He told me he thinks it'll be 2 more days before he gets it finished, so it'll be Thursday instead of Wednesday.
Okay. So it was probably 3:30 was the last time, or 3 o'clock today was the last I spoke with them, and I had already kind of got my presentation going. That's where we were then, but it actually has taken more time than they thought to begin with. So, but this is what the path out there looks like that we kind of cut through there. This is the dammed area, and on the side where that tree, that large, what looks like a tree there, that was actually leaned over. It's just a big giant branch. It was leaned over on a tree, and the contractor kind of pushed it up out of the way so that, and you can see what we call the branch dam is kind of underneath that dirt. That was the one end that we the end going towards the Marshall Creek, which leads out to the lake. I want to point out that this is not Marshall Creek. This is a tributary to Marshall Creek, where all of this occurred. But it's just a little dirt dam that's got everything kind of contained within there. The representative from the Corps today did tell me that the lake's kind of getting high, which is good news in other areas. So they're going to start releasing some water out, and it may come back here and kind of wash out a little bit of our dam, but we don't expect much. You don't see really any flow getting through to this area unless it's a rain event.
Jennifer, on the other side of the downstream dam, there's standing water that's got a lot of green algae in it. Is anything that's going to be done about that? Is that a problem, or?
That is not part of the remediation, no.
Okay. And I was surprised because it's a creek and yet there's standing water in the thing, so.
Yes, there's pretty much always standing water, or else it's dry in the very heat of the summer. Okay, on February 12th, our wastewater and superintendent called and he discussed the leak with the TCEQ Fort Worth office. They did tell him that the appropriate way to calculate the leak is from the time that the low flow was noticed until it was stopped, which was a 2-hour period. He told Carl he could revise the noncompliance report and send it back, and Carl did so. So an amended report was transmitted to them on the 16th, and it reflects an estimated 2-hour leak time of about 7,200 gallons. What has been going back to the day of the original leak, my concern is the pipe stability. That's why we've been monitoring the pipe and kind of seeing what was going on with that. The contractor has been shooting the grade on the sewer line, and it indicated that there's a decrease in the slope since that emergency repair was completed. What that means in short term is there's a sag in the line down where the line was repaired. And if that line just dropped, it would be catastrophic because that is a gravity flow sewer line. The pipe is about 41 years old. It's been in the ground for a long, long time. And it is when I show you some pictures in a minute, you'll see the erosion that's back on that bank, and the pipe is not stable. And so once that we could clearly see that slope was falling, I asked the engineer to give us a proposal so that we could look at kind of a final design. But it continues. It started out very, very slow after the repair, but it started increasing. And over the weekend,
Is that because of the weight of the repair?
I think it's the weight of the repair, and I think it's just the ground moving, and I don't know, it's just sagging. It's starting to drop.
I mean, the length of the pipe has been exposed because of erosion of the bank.
Right.
And it's
A
just
lot
like-
of it
It's a long piece of pipe right now.
yes, a lot of it that's exposed now used to be buried pipe under the ground, but it's now exposed because of the erosion. So it became more important, and when we had the contractor come out there and look at it, he said, you know what, this thing is sagging, it's really bad, we don't have time to wait for even an approval for an emergency repair to cut that piece out and get the line itself repaired. We need to do something to temporarily stabilize that line that's there right now. So we created a cradle that because we determined that it's unstable and it needs to be permanently repaired, we wanted to kind of get something out there right now, because even that's going to take, at its quickest, a few weeks. And I'll talk about that.
Is that what those two huge steel beams are doing? Yeah. Is that what they are? They're the crane?
Yes. So what these steel beams are, it's a temporary stabilization that the contractor started yesterday, and he completed it this morning. And basically, they're going across the creek, and there's chains. You can see one of the chains at that end.
You're not that tall. But you can see it in the photograph.
Your mouse won't work?
Oh, yeah, I always forget. Nick Sanders showed me how to do that, and I forget. But if you look right there where my little mouse is moving around, that's the chain that goes under and up and cradles this, around here. It cradles the pipe.
It's giving support.
Yes, it actually, when they fully supported it, the pipe was raised up about a half an inch. That's how far it had kind of slipped down since the repair. While we were repairing it, there was a drip that started coming out of that pipe. I was out there and I said, that looks like it's dripping over there. It was dripping out of the bottom of the pipe. So I asked Carl to please go call TCEQ and let them know it was not a heavy flow of any way whatsoever, but it was a pretty steady drip. And but it is now all within that contained area where it's dammed up.
Did you fix the drip?
Yes. So once the line was now all stabilized, we had the contractor go repair the line again.
Is that why that thing is so big? The concrete is so big?
Yes. That's the concrete that goes around the clamp.
Jennifer, those two steel beams are huge, and I tell you what, today when I just said thank you. About 10 feet that way is a post oak tree with about a 7-foot diameter that the erosion of the bank is so bad that booger bear can fall at any time. If it had landed on that pipe, it would have busted the thing right flat.
That's where the branch came from.
Yeah.
That's
I'm just
what-
saying
yeah, the
tree-
top
you
of
think-
that-
You think the branch hit it, that tree would kill it. Now, those two pieces of steel, I believe, would catch that tree and not let it, it certainly vibrated, but I don't think it can hit it.
Yes, and we'll talk about that as well. But when the Corps representative was out there today, I told him that, and if I were 16 years old and I lived in Trophy Club, you all would find me running back and forth across those steel beams because that looks like fun to me. So I asked him, is there some way we could put a temporary fencing around that till we can get this final repair done to at least try to keep kids off of that? And I hope I'm not giving any kids any ideas, but usually they can think these up on their own. But he did say we could do that because there is a rule that you can't block areas on Corps property. And he did agree that he was concerned too. He said, yeah, this is Corps property. He doesn't want a kid to run across that and fall and hurt himself or herself in the creek. So I'm going to be working on that tomorrow, getting some temporary fencing out there to somehow go around that. I told him that in another situation similar to this where we use those I-beams, we actually got a temporary fence kind of running across it and around so that it really helped block. In other words, it was kind of strapped to them so that kids couldn't try to climb up the side and over because they can do it. But I think that'll at least kind of defer them. We do have some caution tape and things out there right now. And fortunately, the contractors are out there working, the environmental cleanup people, so they're going to be watching that. I don't think we need to worry about kids getting on it tonight, but we do need to worry about that. So that's what the temporary repair looks like. This bank erosion, kind of the other concerns are the bank erosion itself. And the large tree that you see there, you see the roots are just fully exposed. There's no ground. They're no longer underground. That tree there, the top of it, this picture didn't catch it, but the top of it, there's a huge portion that is the branch that fell over onto that pipe. So I'm concerned that that whole tree may come down at some point. I will say that I have not discussed that with the Corps just yet, if it would be a possibility for us to just remove that tree. That is a very mature tree, although, in my opinion, it looks like it's dying or going to be dead because the roots are so exposed. So,
And if it falls, it's coming this way at that pipe.
right. So, but also you can see kind of from where the level where the roots are and where the line is, you can see how much erosion that the pipe had to, at some point, the dirt had to be out in front of those roots. So that's a lot of footage that's now,
Eroded away.
become aerial where it used to be underground.
What did the Corps guy say about that, the trees that, like this one, that could potentially fall into the creek and?
I did not ask him about that particular, those trees, but we
there's
will
several
just
other
get
ones.
into those discussions when we get into the design with them. But we did talk about, we're going to have to cut a path back there on the east side of the bank, like from coming up from, is that Hogan's Glen that you, or the driving range?
Trophy Club Drive.
Trophy Club Drive, okay, to get up through there to do that pipe. And he did tell me for us to look at our easement, because it'll usually say that we can clear things that are on an easement. So we're gonna look at that, and, the one easement that I've looked at, it does, that we have with the Corps, we have lots of easements with the Corps, and just quickly, I was glancing one, and it does say that we can keep a clear path through that easement. So that may not be an issue, but anything off of that easement, which that tree most likely would be, is going to be more of an issue.
When I was out there, it looked like a deer blind or something in the distance on that west side. Is there a road or anything going to that, or they just walk through the woods?
Pathway.
I don't know. We're gonna be doing some trail walking.
Yeah, it's got a cooler and everything there, is that right? Tom? Yeah.
Oh, really?
I didn't know you could hunt on Corps property, but.
There's a gravel road at the end of Trophy Club Drive.
Yes,
And-
right behind Encore.
Right.
That's where we have to go to get to this area.
Okay.
Okay, so this is so far what our preliminary design looks like. And this was kind of drawn up quickly for something to kind of talk about. This is in no way a final design. I asked Kevin to be here. I asked Kevin if he would put his stamp on this drawing, but he wouldn't do it.
Is
So,
that on a napkin or something?
yeah, from Vinnie's, yes. But you can see, Kevin can kind of give you a little more information on kind of what we're looking at, but their idea is to put some riprap on those banks that are eroding. And if you recall, over at the lift station over there off, is that T.W. King? Yeah. Lift Station 2, that's what we did in that area where that pipe, we went deeper with the pipe, and to keep the erosion from, again, bringing the pipe up to the surface, we were able to put that riprap down. And Kevin, for that project, they had got with the Corps office, and there's some areas, some length of areas that you can be exempt from getting a different type of permit that may be required. So till we get more detailed into this design, we may or may not have to get Corps approval to put that there to stop the erosion around that. But you can see that we are looking at getting a new concrete pipe support down there underneath that pipe and install some new ductile iron pipe to get rid of that old concrete pipe. So that's just kind of where we are with that. I did ask Kevin and the contractor if it might be possible then to go around that, weld around that an encasement. And there is kind of one difficult part about that, in that it would be easy to slip the encasement on as we were, changing out the pipe down there on the west bank, except for that we already have that concrete footing. So that might require that instead you couldn't get the encasement underneath where that footing is. So I'm not trying to go into too much detail. I'm just saying that I would like to add in a a metal encasement as a double, redundant protection for that pipe in case the big tree that you saw there today or some future big tree falls in on this line. What I really would have liked to see happen here is what we were able to do when I first came here. We were looking at kind of a similar situation over off Marshall Creek, off of Trophy Club Drive. The Commons was coming, it was a new development, they were coming in, and it had been noted that there were footings needed underneath an aerial crossing there. Aerial crossings are my nightmare. I've never liked them, and I wish they just didn't exist. But they do. In every system in the whole world, I'm sure, has at least one aerial crossing. And in this case, it's just basically impossible to do any type of a bore underneath that creek because it would require a lift station. And it would require a lift station in the middle of core property. And they're not going to let us do that. It would also be super expensive to do that. So even if we had unlimited funds, I think it might be just about impossible because of the necessity for a lift station to push that, on underneath and up to the plant. So we're going to have to figure out and live with another kind of aerial crossing across a creek. And I think by looking at this and getting it designed very well, we can at least feel confident that we can put something in place that's going to hold for hopefully another 41 years. The next steps that we're working on, because this is on federal property, we do have to get a biological survey and an archaeological survey. If y'all recall, when we were talking about at the workshop, the Water Development Board funds, I told y'all that some of their funding requirements require these special types of surveys, and I told you about they have to go see if there's any dinosaur bones. That's an archaeological survey, and this is required there. So Kevin has already lined up a biologist to come out possibly Thursday and get that biological survey done. And you said you did get in contact with the archaeologist? Right. Yes. So he's in. Okay, so it'll be the first of next week. But I went over these plans with the Corps representative today, and he agreed. He said, if you've done a biological survey and an archaeological survey in your easement area before, you don't have to do it again. He said, when do you think this was put in? And I told him in the 70s, and we agreed that if there was one done, I think it would be more difficult to find it than have it redone. So we're going to get started on that. I also want to go through TCEQ's emergency repair approval process. If we go through that process, the formal bidding is not required. If we don't go through that process, then we have to advertise and we have to go through the bidding process. And as you know, that's a minimum of a 45-day process. I think that we just need to get a contractor out there and we need to get that line fixed. So, talking with him, there is a core project approval that's going to be required, but he said that for a couple of reasons, he thinks that this could be expedited pretty well. One, we already have an easement, so it's not having to go through a lot of process of getting an easement and that sort of thing. But the second part is also that he is going to kind of give a heads up to those that he's going to start finding out who needs to be involved in this and giving them a heads up and do what he can to help us try to get an expedited approval through their offices. So hopefully we can get that going really, really fast. I do want to point out that a temporary bypass is going to be required while we do this project. That's part of why the expense is going to kind of go up on this, or why it is a high expense. I'm thinking it's going to be about $180,000. That will include the surveys and the engineering and the final repair. But it is because a large part of that is because we're going to have a temporary bypass for the influent that normally goes through that pipe while we're repairing it.
Jennifer, are you gonna go to the west side and take some pipe and kind of wrap it in a circle or something to, while you're fixing this one piece?
We're going to have to go all the way back to this, that's a manhole back there, right, where he's got the bypass area?
Yes.
Yeah. So go all the way back. We're going to have to rent kind of a self-contained lift station type. Well, it is. It's a little small lift station, and it actually has a SCADA system so that we can operate it remotely. It'll be out there in that area, and then there'll be a line put down, just kind of above ground line that goes over and bypasses and takes it into a manhole there at the influent into the wastewater plant. You see, he shows kind of a dirt dam on either side, and then that kind of going through there. Now, you can see that this was also just about done on a napkin at Vinnie's. So it's by far, not close to where we're going to be, but it's just to give you an idea of what the process will be to do the repair.
Are you getting endorsement fees for Vinnie's? You say Vinnie's so many
It's where we
times.
really had lunch that day, so.
Hey, Jennifer, just out of curiosity, 'cause I'm interested. How do you put that bypass in without more sewage leaking? Because, well, the sewage is coming down that 24-inch pipe, 24/7. It never stops. So
Yeah.
how do you block it off so that you can hook up the temporary fix without more stuff getting out?
Yes, we talked about that, and it is, and you're absolutely correct. We're going to have to look at some kind of containment area that when we cut that pipe back, that we can flow it into that, or a pump to get it over to the wastewater plant. That's all got to be looked at as we're looking at the design of this
Right.
and how we're going to do it.
Thank you.
That's all I have. Then we'll kind of get to what the real subject here tonight is on the agenda as far as what we're seeking approval for. But do you all have any questions about what's happened or where we're going?
You mentioned the Corps of Engineers. They were out initially with TCQ. Is that correct?
Yes.
Like early last week or something like that?
Yes.
And then they returned a couple days after that, and then they came back again today. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and we really couldn't do anything for a short time until the Corps let us do it because it was their property. Is that?
Yes, when we talked to him on Friday, or when I talked to him on Friday, I wanted to make sure that they were good with us going forward. We recognized that there would be some damage to their property,
Right, and the access to.
the areas that we needed to get to. And we needed to fully understand this is their property, and we needed to remediate where they felt we needed to remediate.
When I was out there yesterday, obviously you were there too, and Carl and a couple other groups damming and cleaning up. And, I first want to, say that to me, you did the right steps as far as we couldn't get hold of the Corps of Engineers. From what I understand, you left a number of messages, and then you took it upon yourself to, tell them, hey, you have to get and start damming it and go forward. So I applaud you on that. This presentation, I pretty much know what happened, and you just put this together today. Is that right?
Yes.
And that's unbelievable, and it
Thank you.
really tells the story of what actually happened. So I applaud you on that too. And the utmost, I'd like to give props to Carl and his crew. They found the leak. It could have been a lot worse if that pipe. When you start, it's like you have a cracked plumbing pipe. You get a little crack, the pressure starts going. It's all gravity, but still the weight could have really caused a major catastrophe. So his crew and Carl did an unbelievable job.
Yes, I thank you. I was going to point that out myself. I want to point out that Carl and several of his staff members have been out there pretty much solid working with those contractors, making sure everything got done. No one wants their employees to be working in a creek at night. So we, late at night, basically they could just pump water in, but it required someone to be there, monitor it over, make sure the pumps had gas when they needed it. Carl and his staff were out there 24/7. And I expect us to be on this until it's back to where it needs to be. And I mean both the core property and the pipe itself. I want to make sure that, I don't think Trophy Club wants to be a bad neighbor. And it's always been our goal to make sure that we are a good neighbor. And I appreciate the Corps working with us. It's an unfortunate incident, but I want to say from the bottom of my heart, I believe this was a blessing in disguise. If we didn't know, if the leak that we got didn't happen, I would have never known that pipe was out there, and I certainly wouldn't have known what a vulnerability that we have with that, with all that erosion back there, that pipe sticking out, a tree that the roots are right out over it. So I'm just trying to look at this as we went through a bad time, but it's really kind of a blessing in disguise because now we can get it fixed and we can feel better about not causing a major catastrophe of a huge sewer spill that gets all the way down the tributary, all the way out to Marshall Creek, and then eventually to Lake Grapevine.
Jennifer, right now, between the two dams, as you said, they're cleaning the power washing, in a sense, the banks. They're continuing to drain the water between the two.
Yes.
Is that also, but because of that, you're really taking out, a lot of that is, besides the washing, is really just groundwater that's seeping in between the two dams. I'm just wondering, because of the migration of the water under the current pipeline, that's one of the reasons it's causing the sag out there, is as the water moves through, it's kind of like basic civil engineering. The ground, the banks are destabilizing a little bit, and again, I guess Jim Thomas pointed out that they should be finished with the scrubbing and draining on Thursday out there. Is that?
He said he said he hoped to have it finished in 2 days. That's what he told me. And
Okay.
this was at 5 o'clock this afternoon.
And I join with Director Carr to give kudos to the staff for the way they've detected it, handled it, addressed it. It looks like they've been dealing with all the appropriate parties, including the Corps and the regulatory side, in the appropriate way. And it just shows your professionalism on that, despite our Vinnie's comments, regarding where things might have been prepared. Again, it was great. But I'd like to make the motion regarding the engineering. But could you go back a couple of slides there? You had regarding the TCQ. There, down one. Okay. I'd like to make the motion that we go ahead and approve the engineering to repair this particular section of wastewater pipe for the amount of $20,770 as is in the packet. And at the same time, have the general manager go ahead with the whatever appropriate biological or archaeological surveys. I said it right. We had a little tongue twister earlier today before the meeting. And also submit plans to TCQ for emergency repair approval process, and also to get any core approvals that might be required. And again, the rest there, the temporary bypass, and that'll come back to us later. But I do agree with you in the first three, definitely, especially getting TCQ emergency approval process started. So again, that's my motion.
We have a second.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
Yeah, let me ask you a question. Jennifer, what kind of time frame do you think is associated with Neil's motion? Now, the reason I'm asking is I don't know if it takes 30 days to do that so that we have a chance to have another meeting or not. But if that is done in a quicker time frame, I mean, there's no question that about us not proceeding with the repair. And so I'm only asking this, Neil, so that if it was completed prior to the next meeting, could we give you permission to go ahead and start that repair? So that you don't
Yes.
have to have another meeting to do this?
I actually was going to ask that of you all because I think
Consider
we
making that
do.
part of your motion.
Let me say that I have had TCQ emergency approval within 24 hours, and I've had it, the longest it's ever taken was about a week. So I don't think it's going to be a long process. It's going to take us a little while to get the, Kevin to put his stamp on our little drawing we made, but, we'll get it drawn up. They're already actually working on that. The contractor was shooting the lengths and widths and things that he needed to kind of get started on that design. And I assume he's got that to you, or will get it to
Who's the
you.
contractor?
Raymar is who did this, the I-beams going across, and they're the ones that kind of helped us work up a design and with the and that's what I wanted to say, Neil, is the bypass I was kind of just pulling out to show y'all how we will do that, but that's part of that project. The 180 that I'm estimating this all will cost, that was included in the repair costs, the bypass and everything.
Well, I understood that. And I don't have a problem with amending my original motion to also include the permit repairs up to $180,000. Is there, but I did add an additional question. I don't know if the second will agree to that.
Do you
That's
agree to
fine.
the amendment?
Okay.
Made by Neil? Let me think about that. Yeah, that's fine.
Is there any thought about putting maybe another valve or something someplace in this repair area? Or since you're going to have the pipe, or maybe it's just that if there was another natural disaster out there, whether it's a flood or it's a tree or a tornado, or maybe even one of our new earthquakes, that we could more or less isolate the pipe a little at a more
Different from a water system, you can't valve off the sewer system. It's gravity flow, but you can't stop the flow to the wastewater plant.
Flood somebody's house upstream?
Yeah, I mean,
right.
that's why I'm really
I just didn't want the
impressing that
environmental damage if
that
we
it
could
would be
isolate it.
it would be catastrophic if that pipe fell in, because you can't stop the flow. It's going to keep coming until you set up a bypass, and that could take days. And unless you just told everybody to move out of their house, there's nothing you can do to stop the sewer from coming. So different from water, where you can valve it off, and you can do that on the water side. You can shut everybody's water off and then they can't flush their toilets, but that would only be after all the water cleared out of the water system. So it's
I was just curious because of the length from that map that you were showing, from that manhole cover to the wastewater plant, and considering that the going across that creek, it's obviously those creek banks have, since we picked up the rains last summer, have eroded more than they had historically, and that's why that tree's probably going to fall eventually.
Well,
So.
yeah, there's a number of trees that have fallen throughout that creek, and some that are getting ready to fall, which is very concerning. I mean, the most important is the one that is over the pipe, but the reason I asked about the contractor, Raymar, and not just that, this is a little side note, I was out there, and this guy, David Martinez, is that? Mm-hmm. And he has an unbelievable work ethic. I mean, he was out there laying those beams with his workers, and I mean, he really puts pride in his job and takes it to task, so I have no problem if they're involved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We have an amendment. And
Approved.
Approved. If there's no further Director Thomas.
Kevin, we want to move fast. In your cost bidding for $3,500, is that does that go away if we get the special approval from the TCEQ? Because I don't want some bidding process to slow
Right,
this
if
thing
we don't
down.
have to bid it, that won't be involved.
So does that cost go away?
Yes.
So in other words, the
What
20,
I put in there was a turnkey type thing, so we have all the costs in there, but if we don't have to bid it and we don't have to go through that, then you won't be charged.
And Jim, keep in mind, when I asked him for the proposal, I thought we were gonna be just kind of doing a normal project. But as time got closer for the board meeting and the line was sagging more, it became more of an emergency, so I was glad that we had that.
here's my point, I just wanted the board to understand. If in fact you get the special approval by TCEQ, then this amount we've approved not to exceed will potentially go down by as much as $3,500, because we won't need to bid. Correct? Okay. Last thing, and this is a general comment. Jennifer, I just want to ask this, I guess for public record. There are individuals in this community that embarrass me. They embarrass me because they don't know what's going on, and they publicize things, particularly on Facebook, that are misleading, incorrect, and just false. So I want to ask this question. Now don't misunderstand. I understand the good neighbor. Totally buy that. But I want to ask this question based upon what I have read. Was there any home or any property in Trophy Club ever put at risk because of this leak? In Trophy Club?
No.
Thank you.
And-
Okay.
And just before we move on, I mean, in regards to Lake Grapevine, first of all, there's 3 entities that draw water from that, but given that the size of the leak is now estimated about 7,200, there's 42,500 acres of water in Lake Grapevine, which is equivalent to almost 139 billion gallons of water. And if you take this particular amount of 7,200, it's approximately even if it had flowed directly into the lake, it's 0.00006, I believe, percent of compared. It would almost be like you taking a bottle cap of soda and even half a cap and spilling it into an Olympic-sized pool or something that was approximately 12 to 18 feet deep. I mean, it's so de minimis compared, and again, with the distance between where the spill occurred to the shore of the lake being so long, the natural process of anything going down there is going to be naturally cleaned by the vegetation and also the other biological products in that system. And I mean, I heard too that somehow we were polluting the lake or something, and it's like incredibly crazy to be making statements like that. And and honestly, statements like that where we're dealing with public safety and public trust, there's just no room for it at all.
Hey, Carl, listen, I want to just say before we vote, I am just continually amazed that you and Mike and the job you guys do. I mean, y'all jumped on this thing really quick. You spotted it really quick, and you got after it really quick. And Jennifer, from what I understand, we have done everything that the TCEQ and the Corps has asked for, and have actually been ahead of them in some respects as far as testing and cleanup goes. And so I just want to say thank you to you guys. I don't care what is being posted on Facebook. I want to say thank you to you guys, because we are good neighbors, and we will be good neighbors.
Thank you. And I want to say again, I don't want to in any way appear to minimize that this was not what we ever hope happens. But I can tell you, I'm never, myself or my staff or any person in this business is going to be able to ever completely stop sewer leaks. They're going to happen.
Or
Water leaks. But I really can go home and say, thank you, Jesus, thank you, God, for this being all that it was. because it brought so much forward that we need to do and that now we have the opportunity to do before there was a huge catastrophe. And that's not something I want put on my resume, is that we've had this huge catastrophe. And it's not something I want to have to ever deal with. So I am very, very thankful that I'm thankful for the guys and the job that they've done. I'm thankful for Kevin and the contractor for being right there with us when we needed them. And I'm thankful to God that we caught this when we did. And so I'm excited that we're going to be able to get it fixed and move forward. And as I said, I hope that it's at least another 41 years before you ever have to worry about this again. Maybe 82 years if we're lucky. So.
Thank you,
I
Can
just
I call
have,
for the vote?
I have one last question.
Oops.
Is that all right with you?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any avenues that we could go to, like emergency management or something for this, maybe recoup some funds or something like that, grants or emergency funds available for this type of action, since it was a act of nature?
No, in order to get any type of like FEMA funding, it has to be a declared disaster,
Okay.
and there's not one. But we do have a claim in with TML. Have you talked to her? And she said it won't be covered, huh? So.
Thank you.
Jim, I'm sorry, we do need to ask one more question. Neil, it's a lot of money. Is it you suggesting come out of reserves, or you suggesting go with a note on it?
Right now, I think we can address the financing when we get to the actual, get all the estimates in. But I think right now, let's just go with,
Just gotta do it.
we got to do it.
Yeah.
Let's just take it out of reserves and then
And that's-
finance later.
Okay.
And talking about the reserves, that's the reason why we have reserves. If you remember, a few months back, we got criticized for having reserves, so.
Okay, if there's no further comments, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
It is unanimous. And thank the directors and Jennifer for the comments that were made this evening. I think they were all good, very appropriate. I wish every resident in Trophy Club would take the time to look at the playback on the meeting tonight and digest these comments that were made. Thank you. Item number 7, consider and take appropriate action to approve matters related to May 7, 2016 general election. A, order number 2016-216 calling the May 7, 2016 general election. B, notice of appointment of agent. C, joint election agreement and contract for election services with Denton County. D, joint election agreement and contract for election services with Tarrant County. E, authorize general manager to sign and execute all necessary documents. Item F, other necessary actions as may be required for the May 7, 2016 general election. I'd like to take all of these items in one, unless somebody has an objection. And do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion that we approve under agenda item 7, A, B, C, D, E, and F regarding the May 7th election.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. If there's no discussion.
Nope, I got an item.
Discussion, yes, sir.
Jennifer, you've been dealing with Mike Pastor on acquiring badges for the election judges. Those are, as I understand it, will only get you through the outside door and not through this door, correct?
Yes, this door is completely disengaged.
All right, thank you.
Call for the vote then?
Okay, yes, call for the vote. All those in favor? It is unanimous. Item 8, discussion regarding status of appeal of retail water and sewer rates pending with the Public Utility Commission of Texas. Jennifer or Pam, whoever.
Okay, I'm just going to quickly say that there's really only been one action since last month, and that was that we did have a first PUC hearing in Austin, and that was on February the 11th, right? And I do want to point out something. February 11th has been mentioned several times tonight in all these presentations, and one thing that I failed to mention, that was my 27th wedding anniversary that I spent with PUC and the league. So, But,
Nice visual.
Kevin better flat make it up to you. Her husband, Kevin, not this one.
so we did have a hearing, and the preliminary order that, it's posted, it's item 25 on our timeline and on our website. But that was approved, and basically they have signed the order to approve this to be moved to an administrative law judge for a rate challenge on or a rate review on the MUD petition, and for the administrative law judge to determine if the PID residents will be considered a party to the hearing. So that's where it stands today.
Okay, any questions?
Yeah, one. Would you just elaborate for anyone that might watch this thing at a later date, why there's a discussion about the PID residents and their petition?
You mean why there's a discussion as far as why we're having it severed?
Yes.
In the PUC rules, in the laws in Texas, there are basically two types of customers. There's retail customers and there's wholesale customers. The PID are customers of the town of Trophy Club. They are not customers of the district. We are a wholesale provider to the town of Trophy Club. And the rules are that either retail customers can challenge a municipal utility district's rates, or the wholesale customer can challenge, and that would be the town council themselves. They are, the residents are not our customers. So it would, by allowing the town's customers to challenge our rates, it could have a huge impact for all wholesale providers in Texas. It would basically change the law that says that only retail customers can challenge. I do want to say that in the case of customers of cities, they do not have appellate rights. Cities are the final say. When the city sets the rates, that's it. There is no appeal to any agency of the rates that they set. But for water districts and even cities out of district customers, if they're not within the city limits and they're a different class of customers, they can appeal. But for water districts, only our retail customers can appeal. And so it's important that we have this severed, because it can, if it stays as a part of it, not only does it set a precedent for tomorrow that if, say, the MUD customers don't appeal, but only the PID customers do, we'd be back in a rate challenge, spending money to defend our rates for customers that are not our retail customers. But if they also looked at it as the other type of appeal, which is your wholesale customer, that's a whole nother process that we could be drug into. So it is important that they be severed.
And the point I wanted to make was having been a member, along with Kevin, on the committee that worked with the town for over a year before we got to the actual contract that we have in place today. Gosh, it went back and forth from whether the town wanted to be a wholesale customer or a retail customer or a wholesale customer or a retail customer. If you recall, the contract, Jennifer, got written either 2 or 3 times. You know, and eventually what was agreed to is the town is a wholesale customer. Yet, I would just make the statement, the 2 individuals that have led the effort for the repeal are the 2 council members that sat through all of these meetings, Danny Mayer and Bill Rose, and did all this negotiation, that finally said, we want to be wholesale.
Okay.
And Jim, I'm going to just add that, you know, this is we're incurring costs regarding this rate order based on assumptions made by Mr. Rose in his worksheets that somehow the rate order was subsidizing our commercial customers and he came up with the percent of 42%. The commercial wastewater accounted for 42% of the inflows to our wastewater plant, where it only accounts for basically 23%. Either he misinterpreted data, didn't understand the data, or something else. And for us to keep, we're guardians of the public trust, the public monies, but we're forced by the rule of law to go to respond to this PECU rate challenge. But I just look at it, it's based on erroneous information, erroneous statements, because they're not supported by the facts. And it's just incredible that we have to deal with this type of waste when we have other priorities of maintaining the water system, the wastewater system, and our fire department, where this money could be better served. And it's just a complete waste of taxpayer money. The utility fees, water fees that we collect, any which way you look at it, it is just abhorrent for this to continue like this. But we're stuck with the rule of law. We have to defend ourselves. An innocent person that's being sued still has to engage an attorney and present a legal argument to prove their innocence, and we're stuck in the same basis. And I just think it's a total betrayal of the public trust by those two individuals.
Thank you, Director Toomey.
That's,
more statement.
that,
Well, I
that's
got one
your,
more thing.
okay, I just want to, this is my disclaimer, that's you talking, not
Yes.
the board, okay. That's my disclaimer. Then I have another question of Renee. What are we looking at in financials right now as far as what we've spent?
On the PUC legal,
Yes,
we have paid out a total of $29,147.80.
okay,
We had an $80,000 retainer for the legal firm and New Gen. There's $57,512.95 left in the retainer. We have approximately 17 and a half hours of staff time and some travel expenses incurred for Jennifer to have to go to the hearing last week. So we're
Okay.
tracking, that's
Ballpark.
outside of the legal.
yeah,
Total to date, right now, that we've actually paid is $29,148.
and that's with expenses?
That's just the legal.
Do you have any pending invoices? Or-
Not that I've received, but there's work that hasn't been billed for
Right,
yet.
right, okay. And then you've mentioned this a number of times, and I want to say like 150 or something. What are we?
Yes, I think I'm still with the estimate of about 150,000.
Okay, and then my last question is, not really, but I'm just saying that. But last question is, I read somewhere where a response was a judge, ruled not to say anything about this. Has it even come in front of a judge yet? That you know, Pam?
No.
That doesn't make any sense to me, what you
Yeah,
just
because
said.
I just read something that,
One of those two men posted that on Facebook.
That a judge ruled that no
Correct.
comments could be made
Correct.
about,
we couldn't discuss this deal.
no,
Matter of
that
fact,
has
both
not
of
happened.
those men commented on that post.
Well, it doesn't matter who did it, I'm just asking a question.
No, that has not happened.
I wanna say, I meant to mention this because, and it was actually Director Thomas that asked me, we had a discussion about, the PUC process. He had some questions and he asked a very good question, and I wanted to kind of share that with you all. He was asking, I think, I don't know if it was presented to him this way or he understood that we, I guess in some way chose, or that a judge ruled, or that there's been some decision that that our rates are called into question by the courts or something. That's not what this is about right now, and I want to make sure everybody fully understands that the reason we're doing the rate challenge is because 10% our customers signed a petition. And that is all it takes to trigger the rate challenge. It's not, okay, so we get the petition, now we think, yeah, there's something strange about your rates. Maybe they're too high, maybe they're not. We want to look at that. That's not how it works. It's if you have a petition, you're going to do the rate challenge. That's it. That's the trigger. And I actually even discussed this a little bit with Pam and John Carlton, in that I wish that there was another trigger, that maybe you had to go through a series of things, because this is costing not just Trophy Club, but all of the state of Texas. If for every petition that there's filed, there's going to be a rate challenge, and that's going to be state dollars through the PUC that's going to cover that. So I'm not trying to say if I think that our rates should or shouldn't be looked at. I'm saying that I wish there was more of a process that they did look at before they decided to have a rate challenge or not. But as I told Jim Thomas, that doesn't exist. It's the only trigger is if you get a petition, you're going to go through this.
Just to make it clear, I mean, if the PUC, rules that the rates are actually too low, we have to go with whatever rate they say should be charged. Is that correct? So they could potentially go up.
That's correct.
Because I've researched it, and there were some rulings where they actually made a municipality raise their rates.
That's correct, and that very well may happen in this case because your rates were good to begin with.
Yeah, I just saw Westlake's rates, and they were like, way above ours. And another thing is, just to make it clear, winter averaging is no part of this appeal.
That's correct.
Okay.
Listen, let me just finish it off this way. I've had the privilege of sitting on this board, or the mud boards now, for a very, very long time. And I've never sat on a board that didn't do its absolute best to manage the money that it was given by the residents of this community to the best way possible. Jennifer, I think you told me that this thing could cost up to potentially $150,000.
Yes, that's my best estimate.
I want to know how many people of those two, whatever the number was, that signed that petition. Because 4 of them are town council members and one is a wife of a town council member.
I think you're
I
getting
want to know
off
what
track.
Bill Rose told them. And did they understand this expense that's being laid on the citizens of Topeka?
I think I'll do point of order, because I think
fine.
that's outside the
Forgive me,
reach.
I'm frustrated about this.
I think that's correct because we're discussing the status of appeal, and the process is appropriate to discuss. But I think we're getting beyond the posted item.
Okay, that concludes item 8. We'll move on to item 9.
That was
Presentation and discussion with legal counsel regarding requirements of Texas Open Meetings Act and Texas Public Information Act. Pam?
Yes. So this is a good time for a refresher on these items. I know that during election season in particular, things can become chaotic on these subject areas. And I also want to apologize. I have a cough. I have a cough drop in my mouth, and I'm hoping to stave off the cough. All right. So the laws that are governing the public information open meetings for the district are found in 3 primary locations. Public information provisions are found in Chapter 552 of the Texas Government Code. Open meetings provisions are found in Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code. And certain provisions are found in the Code of Ethics, which is your own body of work, Trophy Club Municipal Utility District Number 1 Code of Ethics. In addition, there are cases that interpret and that apply the provisions of the TOMA and the TPIA, Texas Open Meetings Act and Texas Public Information Act. Those cases are also law. Another body of work that can interpret these laws are AG opinions. AG opinions are not law. So they can provide us very good guidance on how to apply these provisions, but they are not in and of themselves law. Only case law or the statutes themselves are law. First, let's look at public information. Public information is any information collected, assembled, or maintained by or for a governmental body. Requests for public information should be requests for identifiable documents. If a document does not exist, it cannot be provided. The district is not required to create documents in response to a Public Information Act request. Lori Slatt, the district secretary, is the district's officer in charge of public information requests. When the district receives a request for public information, it must respond promptly to that request for information. If the district is unable to respond within 10 days, it has to provide the requester the date and time that the records will be made available. If the information is not subject to release, the district must submit the reasons for withholding the information to the AG's office for an open records decision. The district is forbidden from inquiring about the purpose for which the records will be used. The district can ask for a clarifying, for the requester to clarify the request or more clearly identify the request or narrow the request, but can't ask, why are you asking for these records? What do you intend to do with these records? That's impermissible. Not all information possessed by the district is subject to release. Drafts, documents containing legal advice, certain documents that serve no purpose other than embarrassment, and private contact information of employees or others are examples of information that is not subject to release. If requested, however, the district must seek open records decision from the AG's office to withhold most protected information, even though it falls within a protected category. So if there is information that should be withheld, is allowable to be withheld, we still have to ask the AG's office to rule about that before we withhold it. That still has to be made. The exception to that is we can redact without asking them for personal contact information of employees or other people, customers, for example. That would be able to be redacted without requesting permission from the AG's office. As a matter of policy, the directors should follow district protocol for release of information. The Code of Ethics states that requests for information will be handled through proper channels. Directors will comply with the letter and spirit of laws and policies affecting the operations of the district, and no director shall disclose confidential information concerning the property, operations, policies, or affairs of the district, or use such confidential information to advance the personal interest, financial or otherwise, of such director. Importantly, all members of the public should be treated the same. Members of the public include any person who is not a district official and includes elected officials of other entities who should be required to follow the same rules as all others regarding the release of public information. When a request for information is made, Lori Slatt or other staff member in her absence will ask each director for information responsive to that request. It is very important that as a director you examine your files, emails, and notes to assure that you provide Lori with all responsive information regarding the request. After receipt of the information, a determination will be made whether any of the information should be withheld according to the parameters of the law and pursuant to an open records decision. It is very important that there is a single point of contact for public information requests, which is Lori Slatt. Providing information outside of the single point of contact puts the district at risk of releasing unauthorized or protected information and treating members of the public differently from each other, which could give rise to a claim of an equal protection violation. So, are there any questions about public information before I move on to open records?
I couldn't see credit hours for this? Or what?
You should. We should submit it.
I have one for you. I'll hold it till you finish.
Okay. All right. So that's what I have to refresh you and to remind you about regarding public information and public information requests. Now, open meetings.
Information received via telephone calls is not subject to this?
Yes, if there's no document, it can't be provided.
Thank you.
So if you had a telephone conversation with someone and no notes were made of that phone call, no audio was kept of that phone call, then there is nothing to provide.
Well, let me ask it a different way. A situation occurred when we were going through the issue with the sewer plant with the town, where we received information from the TCQ via a phone call. I made some of that information available.
How did you make that information available?
I put a factual post on Facebook.
So you reduced some of the conversation to writing and put it on Facebook. Okay.
Now, there was an open records request for all of the communication with the TCQ, and then another resident placed on Facebook that what I said was, I won't use the word lie, but it was implied that it was a lie. Did I have a right to defend myself?
Well, I think you're talking now about social media and how you should handle interactions on social media, which is a little bit different than whether or not what you put on Facebook would be responsive to a request for public information. If the request for public information was all communications between directors and TCEQ, I'm not sure what it was, but if that was the request, your Facebook post would not be a communication between you and TCEQ. That would have been your own note.
Thank you very much.
You may have made it public, but that was your own note about that. That was not a communication between you and TCEQ.
Okay.
Okay. All right, open meetings. Meetings of governmental bodies must be open to the public except for expressly authorized closed sessions. We must post notice of the agenda with subject matters to be considered with the date, time, and place of the meeting specified. A quorum, for purposes of the law, is a majority of the governing body. Under some circumstances, less than a quorum of a governmental body may be subject to the Open Meetings Act. For example, and sometimes this is called a walking quorum, directors who engage in sharing information one to another and build consensus outside of a posted meeting could be seen to be in violation of the law. Emailing directors to deliberate a matter is another example of a potential violation. In one fairly well-known instance, when a matter was posted for view and signature of governing body members outside of a meeting, this is a case where in a city's break room, a question was posed to the governing body members, and a line for signatures was put up there. And governing body members would go by and they would see it and they signed whether or not they agreed to the question that was posted. Well, that was a violation of the Open Meetings Act. A decision was made, no meeting was held, and by the governing body members going by and signing that piece of paper, then it was seen to have violated the Open Meetings Act. The similar thing could occur with emailing. If one's emailing one and they get an idea of where they're headed, and then they talk to another one and say, hey, I talked to Joe. Joe said he likes this idea. Pete, what do you think about it? And they build consensus that way, and basically a matter gets decided before a meeting. That could be seen to violate the Open Meetings Act. That could be seen to be a walking quorum. Likewise, you must be very careful not to discuss business, district business, before or after meetings or during breaks at meetings, because you may be in quorum. And sometimes it's a situation where there are at least 3 of you still here. You may not be listening to each other, but you may be in close proximity to each other and could overhear each other. So just be careful, be guarded in these circumstances, because you don't want to be alleged to have violated the Open Meetings Act. So be very careful not to discuss district business before or after the meetings or during the breaks at meetings. It is also advisable that you do not discuss district business outside of meetings altogether, nor with elected officials from other entities. Closed sessions can be held in specific circumstances as allowed by the code. Certain personnel matters, security discussions, and obtaining legal advice are all examples of when a closed session can be held. Only the members of a governmental body have the right to attend a closed session, except that the governmental body's attorney must be present when it meets under Section 551.071. That means that elected officials from other entities or persons opposing the district in litigation or potential litigation cannot be allowed into a closed session. A governmental body has discretion to include in a closed session officers and employees of the governmental body whose participation is necessary to the matter under consideration. Public officers and employees do not have a right to require a governmental body to conduct deliberations about them in closed session. They do have a right to request that deliberations about them be conducted in the open. The Open Meetings Act does not prohibit members of a governmental body from making public statements about the subject matter of that session. However, there are policy concerns that should prevent such members from divulging the deliberations of a closed session. On this point, though, that's what the law says and that's what the case law says. But your code of ethics is instructive on this point. It states, no director shall disclose confidential information concerning the property, operations, policies, or affairs of the district. So even though under the TOMA, Texas Open Meetings Act, or under the case law interpretive application of TOMA, it says that someone could leave a closed session and make a public statement about the deliberations. Your code of ethics actually requires you not to do that. Your code of ethics says no director shall disclose confidential information concerning the property, operations, policies, or affairs of the district. Governmental bodies are not required to allow citizens to speak at their meetings. The district has operated under a policy to allow citizens' input at regular meetings. No such policy exists for special meetings. Emergency meetings are only allowed in very specific circumstances, such as in the case of responding to a catastrophic event, and cannot be held barring those limited circumstances.
Does that apply to workshops too?
It does not.
Okay. So you can have citizen.
Oh, okay, so for your workshop, I thought you meant the catastrophic event.
No.
I thought you were making a Kevin joke.
No.
Okay,
I'm serious now.
okay, I've got it.
Okay.
Your
Special
works,
meeting.
it's a special meeting if you're calling a workshop, so you do not have to allow, you don't have to allow them even at your regular meetings. You have chosen to allow citizens' input. The law does not require you to have citizens' input, but you have chosen to allow that, and you've set the parameters for that, the reasonable parameters for that. But your own operation and policies of operation, you have not allowed public comments at special meetings, only regular meetings. Any other questions?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Pam, we're two separate bodies. We got council members, we've got MUD directors. We talk to each other all the time. Now, we don't get together in quorums and talk to each other, but are you telling me that if a council member calls me, which I get calls all the time, to ask me about a particular thing that happened or a particular thing that I'm not supposed to talk to them?
I didn't tell you under the law, I didn't say there's a legal prohibition or limitation from you having that conversation. On that particular point, I said it's not advisable. I would prefer that you keep your discussions of district business contained within meetings and with your district directors. So that was more of an advisory point from me rather than a point of law that you cannot do that.
I understand about not talking about closed session information, and I think all of us do the best. I really think all of us, both sides of this fence, try to do the best job possible of not doing that. But golly, to get business done in this community, because we are two separate entities driving a lot of the same stuff, this time we have to have crosstalk so that when we meet here and they go meet there, we can get something done.
I think she's advising that, but as you know, we have committees that have both people
Right.
on there, so obviously it's gonna happen. Is it against the law? No.
Right.
You know, she's just telling you what she's advising, but I have a question on, we do post a quorum, when there's gonna be a quorum at a council meeting. Similar to AWBD, if we're just listening to information, there's no harm, no foul. Now, if they start talking about mud business, that's where it'd be advisable, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, to leave so there's no quorum unless it was posted, is that correct?
That's correct, and particularly if there was going to be some engagement regarding, so let's say you're in a setting and you just can't stand it because they are saying things that you disagree with. That's a very difficult situation for you to be in, particularly when you may want to, or someone else gets up and starts addressing that, and you're there in quorum. That becomes a issue at that time.
But you could sit in an audience without communicating or conversing and be okay.
Yes.
If something like that were to happen, can we remove a piece of our, let me just invent this. 3 of us attend a council meeting, and a topic comes up in the council meeting, and one of us, because of whatever reason, wishes to speak. Do one of the other 2 need to leave the room?
At the least.
Unless there was a quorum posted.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
Unless
then-
there's a quorum posted.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Pam, I
I'm
want
talking-
you to
I'm talking
cover
about-
that specifically because is posting just the notice of a quorum suffice as an agenda?
It does not, because the agenda must state the subject matter to be discussed for it to be a valid agenda posting under the Open Meetings Act. It's not just the date and time. It's the date and time and subject matters with sufficient notice to the public that they would know what was being discussed. So for you just to have posted quorum, it's kind of a trend that I've seen develop over the last decade or so with governmental entities to post for a potential quorum. That's not even really a legal mechanism. It's kind of also like the kind of fictional difference between a workshop and a regular session. They are meetings. Whether you call them a workshop or not, it's a meeting. And I'm drawing that analogy to this trend of posting for a potential quorum. Because for a posting to be sufficient under the law, it has to also state what subject items will be discussed. Jim?
If there happen to be 3 of us at a council meeting, and one gets up and says, I'm speaking as a private citizen, not as a MUD director, do the other 2 have to get up and leave the room?
That's one of them.
Well, one thing, it depends on what you're talking about. Because if you're talking about something other than district business, then there's no problem at all. But if you're talking about district business, it would not be the best practice for the 3 of you to be there and one of you to get up and talk about district business.
2 questions along that line. If 3 of us, let's say, are in a council meeting, and one person wishes to speak during citizens' presentations, which is, there's no dialogue, that is merely resident and trophy clubs talking about something. Number 1, can that be done? Number 2, different scenario, if 3 of us without posting were to be at a council meeting, but we said absolutely nothing and merely sat in the back of the room, is that a problem?
If you're sitting and watching and not saying anything, that is not in and of itself an issue.
Okay. And what about the citizens' presentation?
It again depends on what you're talking about. If you start talking about matters of district business, that could very well be a problem.
Better off than that one of the other 2 skedaddle.
Yes, it is.
Well, from what I hear you saying is posting a quorum has to state the subject and the matter. So you can say there's going to be a quorum on possible discussion on item so-and-so of the council agenda.
You could.
Okay.
Then that would not be a problem.
That would not be a problem.
Okay.
Can we, are we done?
I hope so. And part of the reason I wanted to make this and to say these things to you
have a
in this forum is that I also know that you need some backbone. I want you to say no when you can't say yes. I want you to say no, and I want you to have backbone about that. So I wanted to make these presentations so that you do have everybody understands what the district's attorney has told you about these items, particularly as you go through these chaotic election seasons.
Thanks, Pam.
Yeah,
bet.
Pam, I had a question and a comment. In the early part of your presentation, you mentioned the word draft.
Yes, sir.
And at our last meeting, I was told not to allow anyone to see the draft of the water study. It was going to be discussed. In fact, that was the whole purpose of the meeting, was to discuss the subject. it became, to me, an open meeting at the time we convened. I, in spite of what I was recommended, gave the Mayor Pro Tem a copy of the draft water study upon his request that he would like to follow along with what was going to be discussed. I don't care what I was told. I felt that that was not illegal. It was the right thing to do. It was a fair thing to do, and that's what I did. Now, you can tell me whether it's a law or no law, but if there's no law against it, I'm saying I did it, I'm glad I did, and I'll do it again for
Well-
everybody's information. And if anybody wants to be critical of that, please do so.
Clients are always free to not follow my advice. So you certainly can make up your own mind. But what I can tell you about that particular type of scenario is that people have to all be treated the same. And if some people are allowed to see a certain document and other people are not, then that is an issue of greater implication than just the Open Meetings Act.
Okay,
So,
but if I may qualify the position, there were two people here. One of them had asked to see it, and I gave him a copy. Nobody else ever mentioned any interest or desire to see it.
well, what I can tell you about drafts is that they are not required to be provided under Public Information Act. They can be, you can seek to withhold those, and the reason for that is it's not the final document. It can make things, instead of making things clear, which we would hope that providing public information would do, it can make things more confusing. It's not the final product,
Well,
and so the best practice is to provide the final product.
And that's exactly, my comment on it was a draft is a draft. You could give it to a person and they could, interpret it differently, and you've made changes to it after the fact, and they still have what you gave them as a draft. Even though it says draft on it, someone might take it. And in this scenario, I really didn't have a problem with it, but in prior cases, there's drafts that we've gone through and changed a lot of items. Contracts of the PID agreement, how many times did that change? If you give a person a draft, they come across and think that's the final product. You can do a records search online and you come across documents. They aren't signed and dated. Those are drafts. But people think, oh, this is what really happened. No, that isn't what really happened. And that was my fear of giving people drafts, because it's not the final document, and it could turn 180. It could just be one, paragraph eliminated, and that's what I have concerns about.
Right, and this pertains to all drafts.
Right.
We're not just talking about one limited situation, but this applies to all drafts, whether it be a developer's agreement or whether it be the water study. It applies to all drafts.
Okay, Pam, and I'll be quiet in just a moment. This was a workshop meeting for the particular purpose of discussing this water study draft, which was presented as public information to everybody that was here. The draft was presented to everybody, and at the end of the meeting, it was approved by the board. So I understand possibilities of confusion and so forth, but we live in a situation here where the relations between the town and the mud board is not good, has not been good, and I do not like for us to be in a position of acting like we are concealing something or don't want somebody to see something, because the ramifications go far beyond the fact that this was a water study. Who cares if the water study is out there? Hell, we've gotten criticized tremendously for the water study even after it was approved. So the draft has nothing to do with it. So I'm going to quit defending myself because I'm not getting anywhere. But I just said I did that. I'm glad I did, and I'll do it again. Okay?
Well, and President Moss, I don't even know the specifics of that instance. I was not at that meeting. but my intention is to equip you with what the law says. And the law says that drafts are withholdable. They're properly withheld from release, and there are public policy reasons for that. So I hope that you will be equipped with that and go forward and make your decisions accordingly.
Well, I was aware of the situation, not that it was a law per se, which I could get fined for, but maybe a procedure, an opinion, and about that, I didn't care. So, okay, there's no more discussion on that. I'd like to move on to item 10. Consider and take appropriate action regarding the January 2016 combined financials and variance report.
As usual, I spoke to Renee and Terry, and they answered all my questions. There was some, I don't think we found anything that needed to be changed. Is that right? I actually did it early
A
this
couple of
month.
changes to the variance explanations.
Oh, yeah, that's right. The variance report was unclear on a couple things. I did it early, so I forgot what I talked to you about. But I make a motion that we approve the January 2016 combined financials and variance report.
I'll second. I didn't see anything out of line.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? If not, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
It is unanimous. Reports and updates. Item 11, General Manager Monthly Report for 2016. Jennifer?
All right, well, we don't really have, I don't have any exciting news that I haven't already gone over tonight. Couple of things different on the manager's report, and then I'll just open it up for questions. We did receive a notice that Winocular will be going away, and appreciate Nick sending us a notice of that. And we still have some time. He made it clear that it's not tomorrow, but he did give us a heads up that it will be going away, and we need to start looking at a new documents management software. So Lori she heads up our documents, she heads up our information. So she is going to be working with our IT M3. They have some possible ideas of some systems that may work for us. So that's moving forward. We'll be coming back to you all at some point with a recommendation of a new documents management system. On the projects, I believe we have now moved to Pin Oak. Is that correct?
We're actually done with Pin Oak. We're moving to Timberline.
Oh, Timberline. Okay, sorry. That's right. We've done Pebble Beach, Pin Oak, and now we're moving to Timberline, which is the last of the three streets included in the street project. The Campus Circle Waterline Relocation Project, we've had kind of a rough start on that, but we're finally getting going. There was a lot of change orders. What caused the change order? There was some things they didn't
missed a few
identify.
things. They had an existing 2-inch irrigation meter that they didn't include, and just a few changes that come after.
This was, if you recall, that was a project designed by the developer's engineer, and the developer's, of course, paying for the project, but there were some
Omissions?
and so it required some change orders right when we got started. But that kind of brings up another thing that it started as well. That was the first official project of the district where the contractor had to comply with the new law of the House Bill 1295 and do the online ethics filing with the contract. And it was because it was their first time, and I had not ever done it either. We kind of worked through it together. It was really very simple when you got through it, but it sounded kind of difficult. So we thought we were all ready to go is kind of what I'm getting at, and all of a sudden we realized, wait a minute, we got to do this 1295 filing. So that was all done. The wastewater treatment plant upgrade project, they're really moving along now. Carl, is there anything exciting you want to throw in there that they might be working on today, or?
No, not right off the line, no.
They're just moving along. If you've kind of followed on the weekly updates, we're kind of giving an update on as they move along on each item.
Are they having their weekly meetings like we talked about?
Yes,
Okay.
They got big old pipes lying all over the place out there.
yes. It's really starting to take some shape and form, and things seem to be moving.
Jennifer, for Carl, what, are you meeting on Monday? It's Tuesdays you're having the weekly meetings normally?
Fridays.
No, actually, it's Fridays.
Fridays now?
Mhm.
Okay. And from Weber, is the guy from Dallas, Kevin, coming now to those meetings, or is that just once in a while?
Every once in a while, he'll come out there. He's only missed one of them so far,
Okay.
so he actually shows up.
Has what's the new person who was originally on it and then taken off? What's his job title?
Actually, he's going to be the new general manager at that contract.
I think his title is the project manager.
What's his name again?
His
Got
last
the
name's
email on it.
Andrew.
Ramirez or something?
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
I've met him a couple times.
I don't think it was.
So look at the email.
Yeah.
Jacob Andrews.
Yeah.
But the
their
guys from
personnel
Spain are still
stabilized?
there, right?
Ramon is still there. He is not in project manager
Okay.
position now, though.
Okay.
Okay.
So, does anyone have any other questions about the monthly? Here's report.
Next month, could you include in your reports and updates, we've talked about, adding more profile heads every month to existing water meters, and plus we have the replacing the old water meters. Could you just give us an update of where you stand on both of those? And also, with PD 30, or with the non-standard water agreement, are we completely done with that, or, I mean, it's all signed, sealed, and delivered?
The non-standard service agreement?
Non-standard,
Yes,
yeah.
it's all signed, sealed, delivered, and ready to go.
Okay. Because that's a significant cost savings to the district regarding that other pipeline. And, let's see, also, when you talked about that ethics disclosure, AWBD recently had a conference in which that was a major topic down there, and it was, quote, continuing education for Kevin and I and Jim Thomas at that one. And I think AWBD did a tremendous job in explaining the ramifications.
The speaker was really good.
Yeah, very good.
And biggest thing was it was pretty unclear, what they wanted to do, when they wanted them to do it, and especially with changes and stuff involved. Do they have to come back and redo everything again?
Well, that was discussed. But again, that's really it. I just,
When,
good.
I had last meeting, we talked about the AT&T tower. Where are we at on that?
Well, if you recall, after last month, Pam was going to kind of look through the contract and rework it. That's where it's at right now. Is
Right
I
next-
have those missing drafts now.
Okay. That's
Jennifer,
right next to the SOPs, right? On your bedside table?
That's right.
Yeah.
Jennifer, I apologize. I actually had the note on a piece of paper at home and forgot to bring it, so I'm just going to have to speak to the top of my head. You give us each week the volumes, particularly the volumes of water. You give us the weekly amount, you give us the daily amount. But against our recent knowledge now of what we've got to have, long-term, there's a bunch of stuff we got to do in the way of infrastructure. What volumes do those things hit to where I have to start getting concerned?
you should pay attention to the peak volumes that we put on the weekly update. You can see what the peak volume was. And if you recall, you have to design your system based on peak.
Right.
Because you want to make sure when they're using the most, you can still produce it. So if you'll kind of watch that, you can kind of see how it, moves on a weekly basis.
Okay, good deal. Thank you.
Another thing that we were talked about was the water conservation I can't remember what we talked about, but we were gonna bring it back later on. Do you remember any of that?
On the water conservation or?
Trying to be more active or communication wise or something like that. I'll remember it later.
Okay.
Okay. Any
One-
other questions?
One last question. Jennifer, I know that your staff's been pressed, crazy backwards and forwards, but one of the things that I have, personal deep interest in is getting to our customers across the street with an analysis of us versus Westlake. Do you know about where we stand on that?
Terry, you want to let him know where we stand?
I'm about halfway through that project.
Okay, any further questions?
Let's see.
If not, we will now convene into our closed session. The time is 8:45. Pam, will you cover item 12?
Yes, sir, I'd be glad to. Pursuant to section 551.071, the district will consult with its attorney on a matter in which the duty of the attorney to the governmental body under the disciplinary rules of professional conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflicts with the Open Meetings Act, or to seek advice of counsel on legal matters involving pending or contemplated litigation or settlement offers. A, terms of interlocal agreement for fire department personnel services with Town of Trophy Club. B, terms of interlocal agreement for contractual personnel services with Town of Trophy Club. C, terms of interlocal agreement with the Town of Trophy Club for relocation of a 12-inch water line and for water and sewer service to the future town hall building. D, legal advice regarding ownership of annex building at 100 Municipal Drive. E, appeal of retail water and sewer rates pending with the Public Utility Commission of Texas.
Thank you, Pam. Do we need a break?
I need to.
And
Couple of
Jim,
minutes.
I would like to request that this meeting be held in Jennifer's office.
Okay, that's fine. We will adjourn into Jennifer's office after a 10-minute break, which will make us 5 minutes to 9.
Okay, and everybody, you have to go through that door. This door is disabled.
Convene into the regular session. The time is 10:18 p.m. Item 13 is consider and take appropriate action regarding closed session items. Are there any discussion or motions to be made?
Yes, Mr. President, regarding agenda item 12A, terms of interlocal agreement of the fire department personnel with the Town of Trophy Club, we direct the GM to communicate with the town that the district awaits the submission of the new draft ILA as described in the town council meeting of January 26, 2016.
Thank you. Do we have a second? We have a motion and we have a second. If there's no further discussion, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor? It is unanimous. Is there any other discussion or motions to be made?
I'd like to address item 12C, as in Charlie, reads terms of interlocal agreements with the Town of Trophy Club for relocation of 12-inch water line and water and sewer service to the future town hall building. At this time, the general manager has requested information from the town that we still have not got response, so there's no action to be taken until we get those responses.
Okay.
So there's no motion, no just main comment.
Do we have a motion anymore?
Okay, I'll address, let's see, another 12
D or E?
E, I
E.
believe. Stuff, and from what I understand, the attorney that we have, John Carlton, is going to be at our meeting on whatever day,
March 13th.
March
13th.
23rd.
March
I mean,
23rd.
March
Yeah,
23rd.
we moved it, that's right. March
Thank you, Pam.
23rd. And at that time, he will be giving a public presentation for people to attend. The meeting starts at 6 o'clock, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
He'll be in town. He's presenting at a conference in Fort Worth, and so he will be in town and was glad to come and make that presentation to you, and he'll also be meeting with you in executive session.
With not just me, the board, right?
That's right, the
Okay.
board.
Okay. So I'd like to make a motion that the general manager and the attorneys, reach out to the mud petitioner for the rate challenge to meet with John Carlton when he's up here at that time and talk about a resolution of of the petition, and then resolve the matter with the ability to resolve the matter without incurring $150,000 plus to the residents that have been projected.
You want the attorney to meet with Bill Rose and then report back to the board about the feasibility or ability to settle the matter
And the general manager.
in the general manager. Okay.
Correct, that sounds good.
Okay. We have a motion, do we have?
I'll second that.
We have a motion, we have a second, any discussion? If there's no discussion, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
It is unanimous. Any other items to come before the board tonight? Items for future agenda?
Mr. President, when we met in January regarding the ESCI recommendations, we're supposed to do it on a monthly update, so next month I'd like to just have an agenda item. So we, again, the committee's meeting in the first part of March, and by the time the 23rd comes, I'd like to update the full board and where we stand on those recommendations.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to, get an update on the AT&T tower contract.
Okay. Any other future agenda items at this point in time?
Well, and Jennifer, I'm interested in where we stand with the documents for across the street.
Okay.
And, this is not for
Radar.
future agenda, but I'd like to continue to get an update on the line breakage and where we stand. You've been sending them out pretty much daily, so appreciate if we could continue to do that.
Okay, thank you. Any other request or discussion?
Yeah, I think the only thing to add in discussion, again, is regarding that breakage of the line. Again, to commend the staff for doing an excellent job in addressing that and addressing all the parties concerned directly, including the regulatory authorities. And again, Jennifer, for a quick turnaround, that was an excellent presentation that you had tonight, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'd like to join Neil in making those comments, and I'm sure they are followed up by all members of the board. We greatly appreciate the efforts that are being made, and we don't always indicate that maybe in the right way, but we want you to know that we really appreciate what's been going on. So
Jennifer, would
Thank you. And I want to say one other kudo too, because Jim hasn't mentioned it, but he's been called pretty early every morning since this started, and I think I've kind of woke him up out of bed a few times. So he's had his input too. So thank you, Jim.
well,
Listen,
hey, I appreciate it.
Jim, with all the comments that have occurred within this community in the past few days, what do you think about Jennifer bulletizing what has occurred and put it on our website?
Oh, as far
You
as
can put the PowerPoint
as
on
far
there,
as the
right?
sewer leak.
Sure. I'll work on something for the website. I was going to.
I mean, I think it'd be nice to have factual information out there
Sure.
instead of some of this garbage that's been floating around.
I have one more request,
Yes.
that we adjourn.
Oh, I'm glad
I
of
have a
that.
question.
Okay.
Did y'all vote
next
on
meeting.
that last?
The next meeting date is Wednesday, the 23rd of March at 6 p.m. And we are now adjourned at 10:25.
All right.
Good night, everybody.
All in one.
Wait, y'all need to stop.
And you too,
On,
Greg.
on item E?
Yeah.
They did vote.
They did vote.
Yes.
Who seconded it?
Neil Toomey. Kevin
okay.
Carr made the motion, Neil Toomey seconded, and they voted unanimously.
All right, sorry, we
It's all right. Better
Slept
to
through
check
that.
than not.
Pam, get over your cold and we'll see you next month.
Oh, thank